Pirates, I can reject everything. 161-180. 161. Coming to the kingdom of Alabasta, start playing sand crocodiles. Isn't it just an island eater? What's the big deal? Burgess laughed and said, if it dares to appear, I will let it taste the power of the laser cannon. Ha 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 ha. Gao Q's eyes were wicked, and he coughed. I haven't poisoned the sea kings yet, I just can try the sea beasts that can eat islands. This is indeed the first time I have heard of it. Kuro pushed his glasses and said rationally, since the two giants said so, then there must be something special about this island eater. In addition to being huge, I am afraid that the defense is also super strong. It is a sea king, Lafitte, who is both offensive and defensive. Standing in front of him, Vivi Isho said graciously, if it is too weak, it will be boring. It just so happens that we are also bored, so let's take it for entertainment and pass this leisurely time. At this time, there is a movement from the sea level ahead. The skin was turbulent, and the sea level rose, as if seafood had occurred, with a height of more than 10 meters, like a water wall. It's stressful and scary. With a bang, the island-eating monster emerged from the sea, and showed its appearance in front of everyone, only to see that it was a very large goldfish with eyes the size of lanterns, looking down at everyone on the kriss. Wow, what a big goldfish, hee hee. Padang sat on the railing with a sighing look on his face, and the smiling Abis sat on the chair, blinked her eyes, and said in a tender voice, it spoke, saying that it would eat all of us, and even the boat has to eat. Nami's eyes didn't blink, and her sworn face showed surprise, and said that this is the island-eating monster, it's really too big, no wonder it can eat the island, so it is. Alvita carried the big black iron rod, nodded, smiled Isho and said, this is the first time I have seen such a big goldfish. Karina's beautiful eyes flowed, revealing a sly look, and said with a smile, if you have the conditions, it seems very good to raise such a big goldfish, hee hee. Corona floated up and down in the air, letting out a clear laugh, agreeing. Head to head, this goldfish is really good. This princess really wants it to be a pet. Queen Haminghuli gave Corona a white look and said angrily, can you afford such a big goldfish? Eat it. Can eat, you poor. Robin folded his black and beautiful hair, and was intelligent and generous. This island-eating monster can't be regarded as a sea king, it should be called a sea beast, which is more appropriate. It's incredible to say, a goldfish can grow to such a size, no one will believe it. Princess Vivi nodded lightly, her beautiful eyes were shining, she sighed and said in agreement, who said no? I can't believe it. With a body as big as it is, Sha is a ship encountering it in the sea, it is really too dangerous. If it stirs it casually, it can set off turbulent waves and drown the ships. It is terrifying to think about it. At this moment, the huge pupils of the island eater turned, revealing icy killing intent. Immediately afterwards, the big mouth of the blood basin opened slowly, revealing teeth as white as snow, which gleamed under the sunlight. It looks really sharp, and the bite force is amazing. The surrounding sea water is attracted and pours into its body, making a beeping sound of waves. At the same time, the sea level keeps rolling, one after another, and it is very turbulent. Don't say it, looking at the mouth of the island eater monster, there is a sea of water in it, and you can't see the end. It's very scary. With such a huge mouth open, it's no wonder it can eat the island. Jin looked at the dark passage in front of him, and said indifferently as always, but this guy is too stupid to choose us to start. Hawkins is still dead, his voice is low, today it must die, because it shows the appearance of death. Fan Yaoka tapped the gun on the shoulder, and said with a blank face, from the moment it appeared, its fate has been doomed. Special Mother, dare to block Lao Su's way and kill Lao Su. Burgess roared, opened his mouth, and a blue-white light appeared, and it continued to gather. Although there was no attack yet, the pressure of the gathering, everyone clearly felt the atmosphere and became tense. Dory looked down at Burgess, and said solemnly, the mouth can gather light, and the power of thunder and lightning is very powerful. The power of this evil fruit is really powerful. Brigitte nodded and laughed, this island eater has never chosen an opponent and thinks he is the overlord of the sea. This time, it will definitely be pierced, kapapapapa. At this moment, the island eater rolled its eyes the size of a lantern. It didn't feel the danger at all, and it still opened its mouth wide. Roar! The blue-white light in Burgess' mouth has gathered to a critical point, dyeing the surrounding space into a blue-white, beautiful. With a bang, a blue and white beam of light with lightning bolts pierced through the void and illuminated the entire river. In the attached room, the beam of light entered the mouth of the island-eating monster, and decorated the originally dark passage into blue-white. Suddenly, the island eater raised its huge head and let out a shrill whine. The blood fell on the sea surface, and the beam of the sea penetrated the island eater's body. As fast as lightning to the sea level ahead. A loud noise came, the air was detonated, and a strong air wave was generated. The sea level was also affected, forming waves that spread out in all directions. At this time, with a bang, the island-eating monster slammed into the sea, splashing countless water splashes, and the waves followed. Come, the waves! The island-eating monster was distracted, glanced at the Chris, full of unwillingness, and slowly sank to the bottom of the sea, and soon disappeared. Totally dead. Shock. Extremely shocked. Many people's eyelids were covered with surprise, and they stared blankly at the sea level in front of them, a little unable to react to this blue-white light beam. It was too strong. Dory stood on the shore with a solemn look on his face, and said very honestly, if he is hit in the body, he will definitely die. Brigitte nodded and said very seriously, the penetrating power is indeed very terrifying, and it will also cause an explosion of this evil fruit he ate, which is full of attack power. Robin was also very surprised. Looking ahead, May blinked, and said in disbelief what kind of devil fruit this is. It's really terrible. Even with his strength, he couldn't be a deputy captain. It can be seen how powerful Lafitte's combat power is. Speaking of which, Chris's strength is so terrifying, so the strength of the people under his hands is naturally not much worse than this. Princess Vivi plucked her blue hair, showing a charming and sweet smile on the danger of falling for the country and the city, and agreed. That's for sure. Chris is a real strong man, and the people gathered around him can't be too weak. Nami shrugged and said with a smile, I can only say, this island-eating monster is really it's so stupid when Nephew Burgess is focusing the beam to escape. But this guy is the overlord in this area and doesn't take us seriously at all. Karina's beautiful eyes reveal a sly color. Do it right with us, it's courting death, weird. No one else, he won. Ju looked at them, raised her eyebrows, and said generously, since the island-eating monster has been solved, let's go back to practice. Queen Sweetheart walked to the training room. Smiling Isho said, these two giant uncles, Lafitte and the others will naturally arrange, we don't need to worry about it. Let's go, keep practicing, and learn armament hockey early. Alvida is carrying a big iron rod and looks so beautiful with her steps. Then, the girls chatted and laughed, and walked to the training room one after another, and began to practice hard, but they did not become stronger. 162. The ultimate move to reject the fruit, reject death. For automatic subscription. What kind of island-eating monster? It's really rubbish, way ha ha ha. Burgess raised his arms, looked flamboyant, and laughed. Luo held the demon knife and cried, and said coldly as always, the penetrating power of the laser cannon is really too strong. The island-eating monster is so huge, it is a living target, and there is no way to escape. Kuro pushed his glasses and said with a blank face, Burgess' ability, used for long-range attacks, is really suitable. The laser cannon is not only super fast, but also can cause an explosion, making the opponent hard to guard against and full of lethality. At this time, the Chris had left the inland river and came to the mouth of the sea, and the sea suddenly became wider. Lafitte turned his cane, Vivi Isho, and said politely, the whale boat, make it bigger, let the two giant uncles get on the boat. Hearing Lafitte's words, Dory and Brigitte were stunned for a moment, with puzzled expressions on their faces, completely incomprehensible. In their confused eyes, the kriss shook slightly, and then slowly unfolded, getting bigger and bigger. 1 meter, 3 meters, 10 meters. Surprise. Shocked. Seeing such a strange scene, many people were horrified, completely stunned, unable to react at all. It's really incredible that it can be changed in size. EPUB shook his head and said with emotion, "This ship is really too mysterious." Running fast, he nodded his head again and again, his eyes were big, with a surprised look on his face, he made a croaking sound and responded. Dory and Brigitte glanced at each other and both laughed, very happy. "The captain said just now that you can get on the boat. I thought what was going on." Dory raised his head and laughed and said something. "It turns out that this ship can be made bigger or smaller, it's really amazing, Brigitte nodded and agreed with a smile. "We've lived for more than 100 years, and we haven't seen anything like that. But it's the first time I've seen such a powerful ship, kapapapapa." At this time, the kriss stopped expanding and turned into a very large ship with a black body, which looked very hockey mighty. As the vice captain, Lafitte naturally opened his mouth and said politely, "2 giants, you can board the ship." Dory and Brigitte, both decisive people, boarded the kriss without saying anything. Immediately, the ship sank a lot, and the draft increased sharply. "How terrible the weight of the 2 of them is. It's heavy enough, I thought I couldn't carry it." Burgess shrugged, looking helpless. Jin disagreed and said indifferently, "Our ship is the strongest ship in the world. Don't talk about carrying 2 giants, just a few more, there will be no problem." Kuro habitually pushed his glasses, and said calmly and rationally, "If Marine knows the situation of this ship, then Marine will definitely be very dissatisfied. A ship that can get rid of the pursuit of warships, Marine is absolutely not allowed to appear." At this time, Lafitte looked at the 2 giants and stood with his cane in front of him, and Vivi said with a smile, "Dory, Brigitte, welcome to the kriss Pirates. I'm Ben's vice captain, Lafitte. Next, let me tell you about the rules and future plans of this ship." A day later. Kriss, in the training room. Alvida stood the big black iron rod in front of him, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and said beautifully and generously, "Kriss seems to have encountered a problem." I saw Kriss at this time, sitting on the deck, with his head lowered, with a contemplative look. Nami swung the wooden sword and practiced hard, and said carelessly, "Kriss rarely shows this appearance, it seems that there is a problem with his cultivation. Our captain's talent is not ordinary." The sweetheart queen stroked her pale blonde hair, and Isho said something with a smile. "Even he is in trouble. It seems that the skills to be developed must be very terrifying." Robin looked at them. Flicking his black and beautiful hair, he said intellectually and elegantly, "Don't worry, Kriss will definitely be able to handle it, we have to trust him. Speaking of which, Kriss has mastered it, it's really too much. I am a master in swordsmanship, and I am also a strong fighting technique. The most powerful is the development of devil fruits. No matter what is to reject fatigue, or to platoon, they are both so powerful and admirable." Karina rolled her beautiful eyes, revealing a sly look, and said strangely, "I asked Kriss last time, his swordsmanship has already reached the level of a great swordsman. With the fighting technique, the peacock can beat crocodile, the tiger can beat Doflamingo, and the elephant can even kill Admiral. As for Yikai, Kriss said, he hasn't developed it yet." Perona floated in the air, nodded again and said with a smile, yes, Kriss said, Yikai is the ultimate meaning of fighting technique. The development is very difficult, and it is still under research, and there is not much clue." Reiju crossed Erlang's legs, and his delicate chin was supported by his jade hands, and Isho said with a smile, "Swordsmanship and fighting technique, I will not make evaluation. But Kriss was really creative with the devil fruit development. The previous generation's ability to reject the fruit had mediocre aptitude, and did not give full play to the ability of this fruit. And when it came to Chris, the fruit of rejection was played with tricks, and all kinds of strange skills were all studied. So far, there are more than a dozen moves that Chris has developed. Reiju looked at Chris back, his eyebrows curved, and his pretty face showed admiration. He smiled sweetly and said, rejecting the voice, the mirror, and the incompatibility of the devil fruit. Especially the absolute defense he developed, almighty push. This gives me the most powerful feeling, it's simply cool. Makino nodded lightly, very gentle, and agreed. Remember that Christie said that the development of the fruit of rejection is the last step, which is the so-called ultimate move, rejection of death. If Chris develops this skill, then he will be immortal, even if the world collapses and the universe is derailed, he can survive and become an eternal existence. Kaya looked at Chris with a pure and sweet smile and said, anyway. Mr. Chris is the best, he will definitely be able to do this, hee hee. Just then, a siren was heard outside. Report. Ahead is Drum Kingdom, whether to land. Ahead is. Nami stood the wooden sword in front of her, took a break, laughed and said something. Finally to the Drum Kingdom. The next stop is Alabasta Kingdom, ready to fight Shichibukai Crocodile, haha. Vivi nodded, her eyebrows twitched, and Isho said gently, from the Drum Kingdom to Alabasta, the journey is very short, and it will be there soon. Robin flipped through the Devil Fruits illustrated book, and was very interested in this book and couldn't put it down. Kyonchin Isho, intellectually and elegantly said, that is to say, the good days of Crocodile, there are not a few days. At this time, Chris turned his back to them, calm as always, speak to them and go directly to the Kingdom of Alabasta. Chris knew very well what the Drum Kingdom was like. In this country are not worthy of attention, neither can they get useful information, nor can they recruit new crew members. Therefore, the Drum Kingdom stop is directly ignored and ignored. You guys continue to practice, I'll just go out and talk, just take a walk, hee hee. Karina's smile is sweet, quirky, and she looks very lively and cute. Corona floated up and down in the air, and said with a smile, together, this princess is going out too. Then, the two chatted and laughed, and walked outside. Queen Sweetheart leaned against the table and wiped her jade hand. It seems that Chris knows the Drum Kingdom very well. Otherwise, why would you just skip it and not choose to log in? Betty was holding a cigarette, waving a banner, cultivating the ability of Devil Fruit, and said lightly, it's okay not to log in. There is no need to waste time, it is the most correct to continue to set off. Meidi shrugged, and Isho said something with a smile. Remember Vivi said that the Drum Kingdom is a medical power. If I have the chance, I really want to go and see it. But since Chris said so, we can only wait for it later. Alvida drank some water, took a rest, and said with a smile, the fleet can only keep moving forward and rushing into the new world. If you want to come back here, it will take at least a few years. This is inevitable. Desaya brushed his red and yellow hair, and said casually, the sea is so wide, it is impossible for every island to land on it. Reiju looked at Baccarat, and said dignifiedly, since Chris said so, then in the Drum Kingdom, there must be no good luck, that's right. There is no special feeling, it is really not worth logging in. Baccarat is shallow Isho, with a graceful and luxurious temperament, which is enviable. Above the deck, Burgess stood up, laughed and said, come on, the next stop is Alabasta Kingdom, our destination is finally here, way ha 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 ha. Poisoning the chair, he coughed, starting from South Blue, traveling around the world, and finally reaching the other side, hee hee. I feel that the blood in my body has completely boiled, and I really want to immediately. We'll meet Shichibukai. Jin wielded those two weapons and practiced armament hockey. At this moment, the sound of footsteps came, and Karina said with a smile, Chris said, sail straight, and quickly rushed to the Kingdom of Alabasta. As for this Drum Kingdom, don't bother about it at all. Hearing her words, Kuro habitually pushed his glasses, his eyes flashed with wisdom, and he said something rationally. It seems that there is nothing good in the Drum Kingdom, so this island is selectively ignored. Bartolomeo touched his nose ring and said with a smile, "This is the best way. Get to your destination early and start fighting." Luo is a doctor. He must be very interested in the Drum Kingdom, which is famous for its medical treatment. He said coldly. "Although I really want to go up and have a look, since the captain said so, we can only talk about it later. After all, the ship's course can only be decided by the captain." Lafayette adjusted his top hat, still being so polite. "Since the captain has done this, he must have his intentions, and we can't say anything more. Since we don't land in the Drum Kingdom, the next stop is Alabasta, where we became famous. It's been planned for so long, and it's finally starting to come true. I'm really looking forward to it." Van Auger tapped his gun on the shoulder, and said with a blank face, "The next stop, another fork in fate." Some readers mentioned that they had some doubts about Chris's skills. So this chapter will describe Chris, and briefly write about his fighting moves. Next chapter, go to the Sand Crocodile. 163. Squad leaders unite to fight the crocodile. For automatic subscription. 2 days later. Chris, in the training room. "I'm about to reach the Kingdom of Alabasta. My heart is getting more and more excited, hee. Karina crossed Erlang's legs, took a sip of coffee, her beautiful eyes were shining, and she said something with a smile. Perona flew up and down in the air, laughed like a silver bell, and said, "This is Shichibukai, and this princess is also very excited." Robin folded his black and beautiful hair, intellectual and generous, and had a virtuous temperament. "Speaking of Shichibukai, all of them are the top pirates in the sea. They lived the smartest lives. As pirates, they were protected by the world government and became legal citizens. With such an identity, there are really too many things they can do." Sweetheart Queen leaned against the table and took a rest, and Isho smiled and said, "They are the smartest people, I agree with that. But you say they are the top pirates, I can't support that. I asked Chris before, and he said that the gap in Shichibukai's strength is huge." Betty took a breath, stood the flag in front of her, and said calmly as always, "Anyway. The strongest person in Shichibukai must be the world's greatest swordsman, Hawkeye." Alvida wielded a big iron rod and practiced armament hockey, with a sweet smile, followed by a sentence. The strength of Boa Hancock in the past was in the bottom group. Today, she has already surpassed Crocodile and Gecko Moria. Right now, the weakest among Shichibukai is Moria. Nami wiped the sweat from her forehead and stopped to rest. "I remember Chris said that the former Moria was a newcomer with great potential. It's a pity that when he challenged Kaido, he was severely injured. Since then, he has never recovered, his strength has continued to decline, and he has already fallen out of the ranks of Shichibukai." Carmen held the barbell to practice arm strength. Vivi said with a smile, "The second strongest is Bartholomew Kuma." Chris said that the devil fruit of the tyrant bear is a lower class that rejects the fruit, and also has many strange abilities. Pop-up exhaustion, bounce back various attacks. Although Doflamingo has conqueror hockey, if he fights the tyrant bear, he will definitely lose. Desaya put down the wooden sword gently, and Kyonchin Isho said, "Anyway. The crocodile we have to deal with is the second to last in strength and is pitifully weak." Reiju crossed Erlang's legs and held her white chin in her jade hands. She said gently and dignifiedly, "Dracule Mahawk, Bartholomew Kuma, Doflamingo. Then Boa Hancock, Fishman Jinbei, Crocodile, Gecko Moria. The current strength ranking of Shichibukai is like this." Princess Vivi looked at Reiju with a sweet and warm smile. Chris put a lot of effort into this to become Shichibukai. Shichibukai's strength, life experience, character habits, these. Chris knows all about it, he knows it like the back of his hand. At this moment, a voice came from outside. "Report. Our destination is here, the Kingdom of Alabasta is here, ha ha ha." The alarm officer was very excited. Instead of repeating the report twice, he laughed and was extremely happy. At the same time, the crew members below couldn't keep calm, and shouted loudly. "Hurry up, let me jump up, ha ha ha. Wow wow, we're going to be Shichibukai. Quack. Shichibukai is ours, la la la. Don't talk nonsense, hurry up and twist it, let me twist it, hee hee hee." No, I am too excited, I hurried to let the water go. Grass mud horse, don't push me ah ah ah. Listening to the cheers coming from outside and feeling their excitement, the girls were also affected, and beautiful smiles bloomed on their pretty faces. Karina rolled her beautiful eyes and smiled, very happy. Here we go, we finally arrived at our destination, so happy, hee hee. I'm ready to fight Shichibukai, I'm so excited just thinking about it, my little heart is beating so fast. Desire covered his mouth and joked. The Queen's sweetheart wiped her hands with a towel, and said with a smile, "Since I got on the ship, after so many days of sailing, we are finally about to usher in a fierce decisive battle. Today is destined to be a day worth remembering." Needy stroked her pale blonde hair and curled her eyebrows. Everyone is so excited, they can't calm down at all. Alvita stopped practicing, put a big iron rod on Zhang's shoulder, and said casually, "Becoming a Shichibukai is the most important step at the moment. Whether this plan is successful or not affects our overall planning, of course we will be a little excited." At this time, Chris slowly turned around and said calmly as always, "Let's go." After he finished speaking, he was still so decisive and walked directly to the door. Carmen looked at him and asked with a smile, "I'm ready to fight Shichibukai, Chris, do you have any special feelings? Would you like to make a speech about your mood at the moment, haha?" Betty carried the banner and said lightly, "Don't think too much, how could he have feelings, it doesn't exist." Vivi stood up, holding her little hands tightly, and said a quick word with excitement on her face. "Finally in my country, this crocodile is sure to end. It's really great that the citizens can no longer be exploited and can live a happy life." Robin patted her fragrant shoulder, Vivi Isho, showing intellectual elegance, relieved. "Don't worry, Alabasta will develop and the people will have a good time. After all, Chris is so strong, Crocodile is doomed, there is no other possibility." Reiju looked at Baccarat, his eyebrows curved, and he said softly and generously, "After today, Chris will become Shichibukai. My family, Vinsmoke, is officially working with Chris to share information and resources." Baccarat took her jade hand and said gently and dignifiedly, "That's not very good, you can follow Chris every day in the future. Speaking of which, Chris is so domineering, your father must be very afraid of him and dare not make any demands at all. So, what Chris said has absolute authority. Your father, you can only obey honestly and dare not say anything more." Makino stood up and said softly, "Lord Chris is so strong that no one is allowed to question him. So don't worry Reiju, your father would love you to stay on the boat and wouldn't think about sending you back to North Blue." Kaya looked at Reiju with a pure and sweet smile, and said in a soft voice, "I like Sister Reiju very much. She is generous and gentle. She is really a good sister." Reiju showed an alluring smile, Mei blinked, and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I didn't think too much about it. Okay, let's go out quickly, let's go quickly." Then, the girls chatted and laughed, each in a very good mood, and walked outside. On the deck, Ikulem stood by the railing and looked at the island in front of him, with a look of relief on his face, and muttered to himself. "Arrived, finally to the kingdom of Alabasta. Damn crocodile, you're going to be screwed today, for sure." Padang sat by the railing, took a sip of his drink, and asked curiously, "Run fast, there is Alabasta in front of you." Beppo practiced his kicking skills, his eyes widened, this kingdom of Alabasta looks so big. Running faster, nodding his head, and with a croak, he responded. At this time, Burgess raised his arms, let out a roar, and said with a loud laugh, I finally see Alabasta, way ha 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 ha. Crocodile, the first Shichibukai to be killed, hee. Stood up, hunched over his body, and looked savage. Jin stopped cultivating. His dark face rarely showed excitement. This is where we became famous. I will definitely remember today, and I will never forget it. Bartolomeo put his hands in the pockets of his trousers, with a tugging look, and said extremely arrogantly, "What Shichibukai, when we meet, let him see how powerful I am. It's rare to meet the weakest Shichibukai, so I think we can try it together." Luo carried the demon sword and cried, and said something coldly. Recently, everyone's strength has been greatly improved, and they can completely fight with Crocodile. Hawkins put away the card, still like the dead man, and said in a low voice, "This idea is good. I really want to know, where is the gap between us and Shichibukai?" Cavendish held the famous sword Durandal, and said proudly, "When the captain arrives, I will mention it to him." I don't believe it anymore. With so many of us, we won't be able to beat the weakest Shichibukai. Stop joking. Van Auger tapped his gun on the shoulder, looked at the island in front of him, and said expressionlessly, "Crocodile is indeed a very good opponent. I don't know if he can dodge my bullets. I'd love to know." Kuro habitually pushed his glasses. His eyes flashed with wisdom. He analyzed it carefully, and said something. Crocodile in his youth was ambitious and even dared to challenge the Four Emperors' Whitebeard, which shows his strength and must be very good. Now he's fallen, and his strength keeps regressing, but Logia's rustling fruit has given him too much power. Although our strength is constantly improving, there is still some distance from the height of Shichibukai. So in my opinion, even if we join forces, we are not Crocodile's opponents. Kuro pushed his glasses again and said with a serious look, "But it doesn't matter, it's rare to meet such a good trial opponent, how can you miss it? Anyway, with the captain here, our danger is guaranteed." Lafitte turned his cane. Vivi Isho, still so polite, said something. "Since everyone has this idea, I'll talk to him when the captain comes." "That's right, I also want to see what kind of strength Shichibukai is. I'm really looking forward to it. Guys, I was really busy during Chinese New Year some time ago. I'm better now. I am not so busy anymore, and I'm starting to recover slowly. Next, it will be updated every day, so you can watch it with peace of mind. I'm really sorry a few days ago, I bowed and apologized." 164. The Horror of the Logia Swish Fruit. For automatic subscription. At this time, there was a sound of footsteps, and I saw Chris leading the girls and appearing on the deck. "You guys are going to fight Crocodile, how is that possible?" Karina looked at Lafitte and the others, her beautiful eyes flowing, and she said with a smile, "It's Shichibukai, how could you guys be able to fight? It's impossible." Perona nodded, with a look of contempt on her pretty face, and followed, "This princess is not optimistic about you, so let's give up this idea earlier." The sweetheart queen shrugged, and Isho smiled. "Isn't that nice? How fun. Anyway, with Chris here, even if they can't beat Crocodile, they won't be in danger. If that's the case, let Lafitte and the others try it, it's pretty good." Betty took a breath, carried the banner, and said lightly, "It's not an easy thing to meet such a good trial opponent. If I miss it this time, I don't know when the next time will be." Desaya nodded and said shallowly, "Let the squad leaders try it first. If it doesn't work, replace it with Chris. I think it's okay to do so." Alvita showed a charming and sweet smile and agreed, "If Chris makes a move, then there is no need to say, there must be a solution. That way, it doesn't make any sense. So, let the squad leaders try, just to see Shichibukai's strength, why not do it?" Nami blinked her big eyes, smiled innocently, and said carelessly, "If Chris takes the shot, we won't be able to see anything. With Chris as a person, the shot must be quick and accurate, and it is impossible to play Crocodile there. This is inevitable. So let Lafayette and the others take action, I agree very much." Robin folded his black and beautiful hair, intellectual and elegant. Speaking of which, I also really want to see Crocodile's strength. Since I've been with him, they never seen him make a move, not even once. Although he is arrogant. But his ability to become Shichibukai shows that he is still very powerful. The squad leaders are not weak. If you fight Crocodile, even if you can't beat it, you won't lose too badly. At this time, Burgess raised his arms, looked at Chris, smiled, and said loudly, "Captain, how is it, can you agree, way ha 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 ha." Poisoned a cruel smile, with a sinister look, "He is the Logia rust fruit, I am the Logia miasma fruit. Is the sand stronger or the miasma stronger? I really want to know the answer." Jin looked at Chris and said respectfully, "Captain, let's try it, I really want to fight Shichibukai." The other squad leaders didn't speak, they nodded in unison, their faces were full of anticipation, and they really wanted to fight with dinosaurs. Chris put his hands in his trouser pockets, still so calm, and said lightly, "Yes." After speaking, without the slightest hesitation, he jumped directly to the island and landed in the destination Alabasta Kingdom. I knew that the captain would certainly agree. Crying with the demon sword, he said something coldly and jumped under the boat. Hawkins put away the cards, and still said deadly, "Being able to work with Chiwu is a supreme honor and worth cherishing." Van Augur tapped the gun on the shoulder, expressionless. "Among the opponents I have met, this time is the strongest. Through this battle, I will definitely be able to learn a lot. This is my destiny." Bartolomeo touched his nose ring and said impatiently, "Why do you talk so much? Just hit it and you're done, hee hee." Kuro pushed his glasses and said something calm and rational. "This battle will allow me to accumulate rich experience and become stronger. The battle for the squad leader will begin in a few days. Taking this opportunity, we must make a breakthrough no matter what." Lafitte turned his cane, Vivi Isho, and said politely, "Crocodile is a rustling fruit person, and fighting in the desert will be too beneficial for him. But it doesn't matter, these are all external factors, and they cannot fundamentally determine the victory or defeat of a battle." Nami fell into the desert and looked around. "I saw the whaleboat leaning on the shore, and the desert was deserted on three sides, as far as the eye could see, like a pale golden ocean." Meimu blinked, her fair and delicate face showed a look of emotion, and murmured, "This is the first time I've seen such a large desert." Nojiko nodded, brushed his blue hair, and smiled Isho. "It's a pity that the sun is too strong and the air temperature is very high. If you do'n't walk in the desert, it's really interesting." Kaya looked around, wrinkled her beautiful eyebrows, and her pretty face revealed doubts. "It's written in the book that there are plants in the desert. Why did I look at it for so long, but I didn't find any green plants, as if there were no signs of life?" Makino was still so gentle, and said with a smile, "For ordinary people, the desert is a very dangerous place. It's very easy to get lost in a place like this. Once you lose your way, you really can't get out of the desert, which is terrifying." Alvida was carrying a big iron rod and looked helpless. "This desert is too big. If there is a means of transportation, it would be perfect." The Queen's sweetheart was wearing a white veil on her head, her beautiful eyes blinked, and she said with a smile, "Anyway, take protective measures, or your skin will be tanned. If the sun is so big, if we don't block it, we will all become black when we get out of the desert." Desaya shrugged and said casually, "The sun is so hot and the weather is so hot, it's really annoying." Carmen looked around, frowned and said, "I think, we still have to think of a way to see how to do it properly. They're men who are not afraid of the dark, but it doesn't have much to do with each other. But we are different, if we go on like this, our skin will be tanned." Vivi wears long sleeves and a gauze on her head, wrapping herself tightly so that she will not be poisoned by the sun. Sweet and pleasant smile appeared on Chinguo Chingchung's face, and he was relieved. "Don't worry, as long as we take protective measures, we will be fine. It should be noted that if you are thirsty, remember to drink water in time, and you must not drag it. After all, it's really too hot here. If there is not enough water, it is very likely that you will suffer from heat stroke. Everyone must pay attention. Robin folded his black and beautiful hair, and said with a sigh, speaking of which, Crocodile's fruit ability is really powerful. It can turn oases into deserts, cities into ruins, and even the weather can change. It hasn't rained in a long time, it's all crocodile. His rustling fruit directly changed the entire kingdom of Alabasta. Reiju looked at Robin, raised her eyebrows, and said gently, Isho, it didn't rain before, but today it's definitely different. Crocodile will be killed today. Without his control, today's Alabasta kingdom will surely rain happiness. Bakura stroked his crimson hair and said generously, when we come back here next time, the desert will become an oasis, and the ruins will become a prosperous city. The kingdom of Alabasta will surely flourish and become the richest country in the first half of the Great Waterway. After all, this is the location of our branch. It is inevitable that it will develop rapidly. At this moment, sand came from the desert ahead. Sound. At the same time, the ground shook and the sand kept falling. There is something terrifying underground, as if it is about to emerge. Explain, Sand Crocodile is a big story, so this chapter will pave the way and make a transition. Next chapter, Crocodile appears, and the fight begins. 165. Onagumo ends Alabasta Kingdom and begins to capture Chris. For automatic subscription. In the desert, something big is about to emerge. What will it be? Karina's beautiful eyes were sparkling, and there was a hint of surprise on her pretty face. Corona held an umbrella, floated in the air, and said with a smile, when you get off the boat, you meet interesting animals. It's really fun, ha 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 ha. Nami blinked her big eyes and said something with a curious look on her face. Under the desert, what animal will be there? Is it a lizard? Princess Vivi looked at them, her eyebrows curved, and Isho said with a smile, under the desert, there are all kinds of animals. The more common ones are sand scorpions, lizards, centipedes. Walking in the desert, in addition to fear of being lost, I am even more afraid of encountering these terrifying animals. Robin nodded lightly, with the light of wisdom in his eyes, and said intellectually and elegantly, being able to survive in such a harsh environment is naturally stronger. And the vitality is very tenacious, and it is a dangerous species that is difficult to deal with. At this moment, there was a bang in the front, and the yellow sand flew into the sky, scattering in all directions, the smoke and dust filled the air, and a black figure could be vaguely seen. Brush. This huge black scorpion, with the two giant pincers clamped, made a crisp sound, and under the sunlight, it flashed a cold light, very sharp. With icy colors stared at the humans in front of them, treating them as prey. Speaking of which, it is the overlord of this area and has never encountered danger, so it does not know what it is to be afraid. A swish sound, the giant scorpion crawls quickly, raising a burst of yellow sand, and rushing towards Chris and the others like lightning. Fierce, and the two giant pincers had already opened, as if they were going to kill everyone. It's really a arrogant scorpion, it doesn't take us seriously at all, kapapapapa. Brigitte carried the giant axe and laughed loudly in the sky, very bold. Dory nodded and said with a smile, it has never met an opponent here, so it is understandable that it will be arrogant. Burgess raised his arms high and laughed, didn't you just say that there is no means of transportation? This big guy is the most suitable, way ha 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 ha. It's not something ordinary people can do to tame this ferocious beast. You can only let the captain take action. Jin looked at Chris back with a look of admiration. Luo held the demon knife and cried, and said coldly as always, this giant scorpion must be the overlord of this area. Even if we could kill it, we wouldn't be able to tame it, no doubt about that. Hawkins was still dead, and said in a low voice, from the moment it appeared, it was destined to be a tool for carrying people. Kuro habitually pushed his glasses, very rational, I haven't seen the captain make a move for a long time, this is a rare opportunity. Looking at this huge scorpion, the girl's eyes lit up, and they all looked at it seriously, with a curious look on her pretty face. What a big scorpion, it looks very fierce. Queen Sweetheart's beautiful eyes widened, looking up and down at this behemoth. The Staines were amazed. Betty carried the banner, took a puff of cigarette, and said lightly, "Very good, after Chris tames it, we won't have to walk." Nami clapped her hands, raised her eyebrows, and said happily, "If I could sit on this scorpion, it would save a lot of trouble, ha." Alvida nodded slightly and smiled sweetly. "No, Chris has to tame it." At this time, Chris put his hands in his trouser pockets. "Take a step forward." Didn't speak, his eyes narrowed, Conqueror Haki emanated, and he charged towards the giant scorpion. With a bang, the giant scorpion stopped quickly, sweating in cold sweat and looking terrified. Completely shocked by Chris's aura, I was scared to death. "You came just in time, help me carry some people." Chris still put his hands in his trouser pockets, looked at the giant scorpion calmly, and said lightly. The giant scorpion shook its head up and down, and then stuck its huge body to the ground. If you don't know it, you might think it's a well-behaved pet. I was stunned by this at Whiskey Peak. Equilem shook his head and said with emotion, "The ability to defeat the enemy without taking a shot is really terrifying." Running fast, he nodded again and again, and with a croak, agreed. Dory looked at the giant scorpion and laughed. "Conqueror Haki, it really is the most suitable for taming animals, ah. Brigitte said with a smile, "If there is no such ability, then the captain should be replaced, kapapapapa." "It's this Haki again, I'm so envious of me, Grass." Burgess shrugged, looking very depressed. "Poisonous cough," Fellow said, "it can not only scare away opponents, but also make them surrender. It is a skill that only one person in a million people has." Luo carried the demon sword and cried, as always, coldly, "Although it's not the first time I've seen it, it's surprising every time." The others didn't say much, just nodded, all envied Chris very much and wanted to have such a powerful ability. "I knew that Chris wouldn't let us down, hee. Karina looked at the giant scorpion, her beautiful eyes were shining, and her pretty face showed a look of relief. She said happily, "It's great, it's really great." Alvida's eyebrows were curved into a crescent shape, and her smile was charming and sweet. "I knew it would definitely succeed, as expected. With this free foot power, we don't have to travel long distances." Dazaya waved his hand and said with a smile, "Okay, don't linger, everyone, hurry up." Nami blinked her big eyes and said carelessly, "I'm not afraid that my skin will get tanned now, it's really a good thing, haha." Robin glanced at Chris's back, stroked his jet black hair, and praised. As expected of Chris, he can always do things that ordinary people can't do. It's really amazing. Vivi nodded heavily, her face was full of admiration, and she followed up, "Chris is the person I admire most, no one." Then, the girls chatted and laughed, and stood on top of the giant scorpion one after another. They didn't have to walk anymore, all smiles on their pretty faces, they were very happy. Marine Headquarters, Marineford. In a certain office, all the big men at the general level are sitting in a meeting. At this moment, Branu took the phone bug, walked over quickly, and said something respectfully. "Marshal Sengoku, Onagumo Vice Admiral is calling, please answer." The generals stopped discussing, all looked at the phone bug, eager to know the latest news. Without the slightest hesitation, Sengoku said in a deep voice, "Onagumo, I'm in a meeting. If anything happens, please report it directly." Onagumo is also a decisive person. Without ink, he quickly said, "Master Marshal, I have already seen the Kingdom of Alabasta, which is about to land on this island. Next, I will quickly find Chris and stop his crazy behavior." Hearing his words, Akainu's face was resolute and he said very seriously, "Onagumo, for absolute justice, you must take Chris. This damn pirate must be punished the most severely." Borsellino leaned against the chair, crossed Erlang's legs, tilted his head, and said something yin and yang strangely. Oops. Chris is such a potential newcomer. Kid, he will die so soon. It really scares the old man to death. Looked at the phone bug, and said solemnly, Onagumo, I am waiting for your good news at the headquarters. You must complete the task successfully and carry out justice to the end. The other Hawk generals, all with stern faces, nodded in unison, and said a word in unison. Justice wins. Tone is sonorous and powerful, and after listening to it, it is deafening and has a strong appeal. The imposing manner of the iron-blooded soldier is unquestionably full of arrogance and righteousness. At first glance, the iron-blooded division, the combat effectiveness must be very amazing. Today, 2 chapters have been added, 1 chapter more than yesterday. Tomorrow's update will be more powerful, at least 3 updates, everyone can rest assured. Tomorrow is the 6th day of the first day. You are not busy, you can code words at ease and speed up your crocodile. 166. I'm Sand Crocodile. For automatic subscription. If you look at it this way, there will be a result today. Kuzan yawned and looked sleepy. Momonga looked dignified and said very seriously, I hope Onagumo can win and win Chris, without any variables. Yamakaji took a breath, Vivi smiled, and said gently, anyway. The above has already agreed, so we don't have to worry too much. If Onagumo can't catch Chris, let him be Shichibukai, that's fine. Chaton Tokikake leaned back in his chair and said in a breathless voice, the inference of Staff Crane has never been wrong, and it is completely believable. No surprise, the next time Onagumo calls, the report will definitely be a miss. Momoshige crossed Erlang's legs, wrapped his arms in front of him, and said lightly, let's wait and see. Garp patted the desk, laughed and said, after hunting for so long, it's finally about to usher in a fierce decisive battle, ha ha ha. Onagumo, you are the veteran vice admiral of the headquarters. If you can't take down the little kid Chris, everyone will laugh at you. Hearing this, Onagumo was unhappy, looked serious, and said loudly, Garp Vice Admiral, you can rest assured and promise to complete the task. The Crane's staff is unparalleled in wisdom and never talks nonsense. But this time, her old man must have miscalculated, and such a result is impossible. Even if Chris has Conqueror Haki, no matter how mysterious and weird he is, I can take him down. There is no doubt about that. Staff Officer Crane folded his hands, supported his chin, and said in an old voice, Onagumo, it is undoubtedly the best for you to have such confidence. Chris is a young man full of puzzles. We know too little about his strength. So when you fight with him, you must pay attention to the situation around you, and you must not be careless in the slightest. Sengoku nodded and said solemnly, Onagumo, I won't say anything unnecessary. You hurry to find Chris and take him down. Then, the phone hangs up, and the call ends here. Alabasta Kingdom, Spider Bar. At this time, there were many people sitting here, both men and women, all members of Baroque Works. Leaning on the chair, Erlang's legs crossed, his dark face showed a look of disdain, and he said something coldly. What the hell is going on? Why are we suddenly called together? Are you ill? People's Day, that is Nikita. She held a small green umbrella and laughed loudly. Very rude, she was a woman who lacked connotation. That's right, the old lady is putting on makeup, so I hurriedly called the old lady over. Is there something wrong? Sip of coffee, he said calmly. Anyway, everyone is here, then sit down and have a cup of coffee, isn't it a pleasure? Finger, and Sarah, who stood behind the counter, took a breath and said something. If there is no major event, it is impossible for the organization to convene everyone. Everyone hasn't arrived yet, so please wait patiently, and wait for the president to call to inform you. This is a very important event. After all, what kind of identity the president is, no one knows at all, it's very mysterious. Startled. Everyone present was shocked. They have always been curious and wanted to know the situation of the leader of the organization. Baroque Works is really too mysterious, and the person who talks to them has always been the vice president. As for who the president is, no one knows at all, whether it is male or female is an unknown mystery. It's really incredible that the president wants to talk to us. He's a fat man, he's slow to speak, and he's a troubled young man. Wearing a swan suit, 1 foot on tiptoe, turned around, and said strangely, "The president is going to come forward." It really scared the slave family to death. Sarah glanced at Bentham, with a look of disgust on her pretty face, and said angrily, "No wonder no one wants to partner with you, who can stand it? A big man who calls himself a slave, it really gives me goosebumps when I hear it." Galtino crossed Erlang's legs, nodded, and said something in agreement. Baroque Works, among the senior cadres, the only one without a partner is indeed him. Jinzhou, also Marian, ate the senbei and said casually, "The other things are not important, I just hope that the matter can be resolved soon. I want to rest quickly and eat more senbei, hee." At this moment, with a creaking sound, the wooden door slowly opened, and a dark-skinned bald man walked in. Exactly. Among all the senior cadres, the most powerful one. Sarah exhaled the smoke from her mouth, raised her eyebrows, smiled, and said, "Isho, my partner is here, and the crew is finally here." At Daz Bones and said with a faint smile, "The most powerful cadres here, second only to the president and vice president." I said, "What is the purpose of gathering us together?" Nikita leaned against the table, let out an exaggerated laugh, and said something. "Could it be that the president thinks that we have performed well and are ready to give awards? It should be like this, ha ha ha." Buttoning his nostrils, he said sadly, "My strength is so powerful that my code name is. Which is really unreasonable. When the president of the club calls, I will find a suitable opportunity and be sure to mention this matter." Holding the famous knife, State, showing a look of disdain, and said with a sneer, "My strength is not weak, the ranking is too low. I'll have to react to the president later, and raise my code a little bit, quack quack." Looking at him, he sneered, "Well, how about I give you my place? If you don't have the strength, just don't talk honestly, or you will get into trouble, oh hee hee." He didn't stay with them, he sat alone in the corner, his expression was indifferent, unsmiling, and a stranger should not be approached. At this moment, a crisp bell rang in the bar. Broom broom, everyone stopped communicating and kept silent, looking at Sarah one by one. The voice was from her. After waiting for so long, it's really not easy to finally get the call from the president. Sarah's eyebrows curved into a crescent shape, she stroked her blue hair, and said with a smile, "The president has called, and then we can see what kind of person the president is." After speaking, without any hesitation, he answered the phone quickly. "President, I am." Fingers. Sarah's pretty face showed a serious look, and said very respectfully, "Now the staff has arrived, and they are all waiting in my bar. If you have anything, you can explain it, and we are all listening carefully and waiting for your dispatch. Be quiet." Everyone held their breaths, silently watching the phone bug, with serious expressions on their faces, daring not to be slighted in the slightest. "The cadres are all here, great." Phonebug imitated the appearance of Crocodile, with a big back and a black fur coat on his shoulders, looking like a big brother. Very stylish. Crocodile leaned against the sofa, crossed Erlang's legs, took a puff of cigarette, and said very arrogantly, "I know you are very curious about my identity, and have been inquiring about my situation. Today, I will officially tell you, strengths. You all know that Shichibukai, the king, is the 7th strongest pirates in the ocean, and he is the top power recognized by the world government. And I'm one of the Shichibukai, the sand crocodile. Startled. Shocked. It suddenly became quiet, and even if a needle fell to the ground, it could be heard clearly. At this moment, shocking expressions appeared on everyone's faces. Their eyes widened, as if they had seen a ghost, and they couldn't react at all. Is this true? Galtino sat up straight, with a look of horror on his face, and said in disbelief, "The identity of the president is so terrifying, this is incredible." His eyes were fixed on the phone bug. Without blinking, he couldn't believe it. Baroque works has such a big background, it really scares me to death. Nikita covered her mouth, let out a sharp laugh, and said something very happy. "That's great, it turns out that the organization I belong to belongs to the King Shichibukai, ha ha ha." Daz Bones stood up, his face was serious, and he said indifferently, "I was a bounty hunter in West Blue, and I have seen all the pictures of Shichibukai. I can confirm that the identity of the president is indeed the King Shichibukai." Bentham landed on one foot, continued to dance the ballet, and said with a smile, "It turns out that the boss of the slave family is so powerful, it's really amazing. Following such a powerful boss, the slave family will be very relieved in the future, hee hee." Sarah took a breath, shook her head gently, her pretty face showed emotion, and murmured, "Your identity, President, is really scary, it scared us all. This is the King Shichibukai, the top pirate, the existence that everyone knows about. What does it mean to be famous all over the world? Your identity, President, is genuine. Spread all over the sea, it's really amazing." The other cadres nodded hurriedly, each with a look of horror on their faces, and at the same time full of smiles, all feeling that they would definitely be able to stand out in the future. "Guys, above is a picture of Sarah. This slender body, delicate and beautiful face, is really a beautiful woman. Pity that in the anime, she is just a role model, she has no chance to appear at all, she is speechless." 167. Hit the cadres, and then hit the sand crocodile. For automatic subscription. Crocodile was very useful to the shock of the cadres, which made him feel very proud, and became more and more arrogant. "This time I called you all for one purpose, that is to get rid of the Chris pirates. According to the information, this group of people is crossing the desert and rushing to the rain from the south." Crocodile took a breath and said with a look of disdain, "You guys right now. Go and kill these little devils before they enter the rain. Remember, although the kid has a high bounty, they are all newcomers who have just entered the Great Waterway, and their strength is not much stronger. I'll rush over in person later, I hope you won't let me down." Cadres didn't dare to hesitate, nodded quickly, and respectfully agreed, "Yes, President, promised to complete the task." At this point, the call ends. Crocodile stood up, walked to the pool, looked at the banana crocodile inside, with an angry expression on his face. "Damn Nico Robin, how dare you betray Lao Su? You stupid woman, do you really think the identity of Lao Su Shichibukai is a decoration? When I take down this kid Chris, I will find someone to concoct you and let you know what the fate of betraying me is. And the Chris pirates, don't even think about running away, all of you should be the food for the banana crocodile, ha ha ha." Suddenly, remembering something, he clenched his fists and cursed angrily, "And damn Marine, damn Sengoku. It even advised me to leave the kingdom of Alabasta and avoid these. Little devil, let me be a tortoise with a shrunken head. Wait, damn Marines, I'll let you know, you're all blind, you're all rubbish with no eyes." Throwing away the cigar in his hand, he strode to the door, looking very pompous and like a boss. Spider bar. Seeing that the phone was hung up, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. There was not so much pressure, and they could chat freely. "Finally the call is over, I was really nervous just now." Galtino leaned back in his chair, sighed, and said helplessly, "I was so frightened that I couldn't breathe when I heard the identity of the president, alas." Shrugging his shoulders, with a depressed look on his face, he continued, "I wanted to show it, but in the face of Shichibukai's identity, how dare I say anything more? But it doesn't matter, knowing the terrifying identity of the president, I am really full of motivation now, and I feel that the future is bright, hee hee. Nikita held an umbrella, let out an exaggerated laugh, and said something. Yes, in the future, my mother will be Shichibukai's subordinate, a real big man. Bentham put his hands on his hips and said with a smile, the slave family is the happiest, and who will dare to underestimate the slave family in the future, hee hee. Das Bones glanced at them, as indifferent as always, since the president has given an order, then hurry up and solve the Chris pirates as soon as possible. This is the first time the cadres have cooperated. If anyone dares to be negligent, I will never let him go. After speaking, he was very decisive and walked directly to the door. Holding the sword target, with a cruel smile, he said happily, the opportunity to make meritorious deeds has come, and through this battle, Lao Su will definitely be ranked higher. He said slowly, since they have just entered the Great Waterway, their strength must be rubbish, and they can be solved in minutes. Sarah walked out from behind the counter, with a slender figure and a great swing. Isho smiled and said, the bounty of the Chris pirates is indeed very high. But it doesn't matter, the president is Shichibukai, the most powerful pirate. With the president here, you don't have to worry about anything. This feeling is really great. He laughed loudly, and his tone was very certain. Don't say it's a newcomer, it's the same. An old man who has been in the Great Waterway for a few years. As long as you meet Shichibukai, everything will be over. You can't be the opponent of these big men. Our president, once he takes action, no one in this world can stop him, hehehehe. The other cadres nodded one by one, smiling confidently, admiring Crocodile to the extreme. In their opinion, Shichibukai is the strongest being, the one who conquers, is simply powerful to the extreme. The deterrent power of Shichibukai can be seen in 1. The desert outside the rain. I don't know when it started, a huge dark cloud appeared in the sky, blocking the sunlight, making the desert become dark. This time, the weather will not be so hot, everyone feels a lot more relaxed, and the walking speed naturally speeds up a lot. At this moment, no one knew who made a roar. I saw the city, ha ha ha. Hearing the voice, everyone quickly cheered up and looked forward one by one, and sure enough, they could vaguely see the shadow of the city. This is the destination of their trip, the rain. Ikolem, who is very familiar with Alabasta, nodded and said with a big smile, yes, there is the rain, we are almost there. Tay mother, after walking for so long, it's finally time to get out of the desert, grass. Burgess wiped the sweat from his forehead and cursed. Jin showed a rare smile, the rest is not important, I just want to play crocodile. Van Auger tapped his gun on the shoulder, and said with a blank face, today is destined to be a fork in fate, there is no doubt about that. Kuro's face was serious, but he was still so sensible, crocodile is not a problem. What we need to watch out for is the threat from Onagumo Vice Admiral. If nothing else, he must be coming to the Kingdom of Alabasta, ready to start arresting us. Lafitte turned his cane, Vivi Isho, and politely said, the threat of Onagumo Vice Admiral is indeed much stronger than that of Crocodile. However, it's not a big deal. If he dares to play tricks with the captain, then his end will not be much better. Vice Admiral, our captain won't take it seriously. Giant Scorpion. Karina looked at the sky and saw dark clouds covering the sun, and the shadow of the town appeared in front of her, which made her very happy. With a smile on her pretty face, her eyebrows curved and she said, that's great, we're finally leaving the desert, hee hee. Nami brushed her hair, her smile was pure and sweet, and she said carelessly, yes, just rush forward and go straight into the rain, ha ha. Alvita carried the big iron rod. Maimu stared at the front, and said something with a smile. The battle that will take place will be held there. I'm really looking forward to it. The sweetheart queen nodded lightly and laughed. Logia rustling fruit, the ability to change into sand, this is really interesting. Betty took a breath and said calmly, it's really not easy to wait for this day since we went to sea. Princess Vivi clenched her jade hand tightly, with a solemn look on her face, and said firmly, "From today onwards, the people of the nation will definitely be able to live a good life. My country will no longer be poisoned by drought, and everything will get better and better. Damn crocodile, you bastard will be punished today." Robin patted her shoulder, intellectual and generous, and said with relief, "Don't worry, Crocodile will definitely fail. The establishment of a branch here in the future will only make your country more and more prosperous, and the citizens will live a happy life. After all, Chris is not ordinary. Rasha has black and shiny hair and a small umbrella on her head, which looks very interesting." Kyonchin Isho looked at Vivi and said, "Princess, you don't have to worry, everything will only get better and better. That bastard crocodile, and the members of the Baroque Works Club, will be knocked down one by one." It turned out that during the previous desert walk, Lasha encountered a large lizard and encountered fatal danger. Coincidentally, Chris and others appeared and saved her life. After that, just like everyone else, it was logical to join the Chris pirates. But there is a small problem here. Lasha always believed that the current situation of the Alabasta Kingdom was due to the inaction of the king, which caused the people to live a miserable life. So at the beginning, she was full of hatred for Princess Vivi, very hateful. Vivi. After some detailed discussion, I realized that all this was done by Crocodile, and naturally reconciled with Princess Vivi and became good sisters. At this time, Brigitte carried the giant axe and said with a big laugh, "What Baroque Works Club, those members have already appeared, ready to fight with us, Kapapapapa." Dory nodded and laughed. It's really naive for the mere cadres to try to stop us. "That's fine, hit the little one, here comes the old one. Beat the old, then beat the ancestors. Just keep going like this, ya. Luo was crying with the demon sword in his arms, and said coldly as always, "Crocodile is indeed an arrogant person, and he only sent cadres here. Looks like this guy is used to Shichibukai, he's so high up, he's already swelled to the extreme." Hawkins said in a low voice, "After becoming Shichibukai and living a life of fine clothes and food, naturally you won't practice hard, and it is inevitable that your strength will decline." Bartolomeo put his hands in the pockets of his trousers, and said something while tugging. "Isn't this very good? Let these cadres warm up us, and we will be more energetic after playing Crocodile." Cavendish glanced at these cadres, and said with a tired face, "This Crocodile's eyes are really too rubbish. These cadres are so crooked, I can't bear to look directly at them. Nostril picking, bald, even she-males. The taste of Crocodile is really heavy." Burgess shrugged his shoulders, disdained Isho, and said coldly, "Send a few small shrimps, just want to kill us. This Crocodile, such a fool, when we are so easy to bully. When we're going to beat these guys, we'll take a harder shot, beat them to death, and beat them beyond recognition. Let's see if Crocodile can recognize them, way ha 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 ha." Guys, the above is a picture of Lhasa. This, from the anime, not the beauty made up by the author. She is a dragon character, so you may not have the impression. Are interested, just go and watch the anime. She is one of the beauties who have appeared in Alabasta. 168. All the cadres were defeated, and the sand crocodile finally officially appeared. For automatic subscription. Are they Baroque works? Why did they look so weird? Nami looked ahead, blinked her beautiful eyes, her extremely fair face showed a look of doubt, she couldn't believe it and said, "Just like them, they can also become cadres. I look around and I don't think they are strong at all, and they don't have any momentum at all." Desire wrinkled her beautiful Luyi brows, and said something with an impatient look on her pretty face. "That one, looks like a rock singer, dressed up so handsome, but picking his nostrils, it's really disgusting. And that one, who wears a ballet suit, why does she look like a leprechaun?" Desire shook his head and said with emotion, "These people are really weird." Sweetheart Queen shrugged her shoulders and said casually, "I don't like them very much either, as Burgess said, beating them so hard is really annoying. Alvita carried a big iron rod with a charming smile, and said generously, speaking of which, this is the first time I have seen a she-male. Zizzo, it's really disgusting. I really want to hit him directly in the face. Vivi looked at the girls, brushed her water blue hair, and raised her eyebrows, and Isho explained with a smile. These people are all cadres of Baroque works. That she-male, yes, is the only senior cadre without a partner. And that bald black man, yes. And among all the cadres, the most powerful existence. Robin put his arms in front of him, blinked his beautiful eyes, and said with a smile, Crocodile is still so arrogant, what a stupid man. He always treats Chris as a newcomer, always screaming like a kid, and doesn't take Chris seriously at all. In his opinion, dispatching the cadres in the organization can solve all the Chris pirates, and there is no need for him to take action. The identity of Shichibukai under this king has made him swell to the extreme. It is really self-defeating. At this time, the cadres of the Baroque Works Club in front were lined up, silently watching Chris and the others, and couldn't help but discuss. Galtino frowned and said solemnly, there are actually two giants, and they seem to be very powerful. I suddenly found that this task is many times more difficult than I thought. Pull out the famous knife, state. With a look of horror on his face, and said a word tremblingly. With such a big giant, you can trample me to death with 1 foot. How can you fight? Nikita held a small umbrella, laughed loudly, and said in a shrill voice, why don't you grow taller, what's the big deal? Our leader, but King Shichibukai, is the strongest man in the sea, ha ha ha. Shaking his head, he said slowly, how can I explain that huge sand scorpion? Bentham put his hands on his hips with a smile on his face. It's an unheard of strange thing to be able to turn a sand scorpion into a pet. I really envy the dead slave family. After knocking them down, this scorpion belongs to the slave family, he he he. Putting his hands in his trouser pockets, he said with disdain, what giants, and those sand scorpions, they are all scaring people. I'm full of explosives all over my body. If I'm going to blow them up directly, all rubbish. Sarah took a breath, frowned her beautiful eyebrows, and said a serious word with a serious look on her pretty face. Don't take it lightly, everyone, cheer up. Joe, and our vice president. All Sunday. Looking at the situation, all 3 of them betrayed the leader and chose to join the Chris pirates. Sarah turned to look at them and said solemnly, the boss must know that the 3 of them have betrayed, but he didn't inform us. No matter what. What kind of plan does the boss have? In this battle, everyone must be careful, and don't be careless. Dazbone's dark face showed a firm look, no matter what, you can't betray the organization. These 3 traitors, I will personally deal with them later, and I won't let them escape. At this time, Chris and the others have already come to these cadres, and as long as they are defeated, they can enter the destination, Rainland. Bartolomeo put his hands in his trouser pockets, and said with a sneer, you rubbish, you are too self-aware, you dare to intercept Lao Su. Jin held the 2 strangely shaped weapons and said indifferently, I hope these cadres will not be too weak, so that I can warm up. Forget about a woman, it's not easy to do it. Kuro pushed his glasses and said with a blank face, as for the man, don't say more, beat him to death. Lafitte carried his cane behind his back, gentle and agreeable, that's the truth, you really need to be gentler with beauties. Of course, if you don't look good, then treat it like a man, and you're done. Burgess threw his fist, big, if you want to fight, just start, grinding, like a bitch. After he finished speaking, he strode forward and prepared to fight. Luo, carrying the demon sword and crying, walked after him, and said coldly, learn from the captain's style, be quick and accurate, and end the meaningless battle as soon as possible. Hawkins put away the cards, like a dead man, and agreed, the lion fights the rabbit, you're still trying your best, so let's deal with them quickly. Then, the squad leaders dispatched in unison, the 8 immortals crossed the sea, each showing their magical powers, and they beat these cadres to cry for their father and mother, and the screams continued to sound. No way, the strength gap between the two sides is really too huge, there is no suspense in the battle at all, and it will be done in minutes. Even if Daz Bones is a fruit-cutting ability, his attack is extremely fierce, but it is still the same, and he was directly dropped by the squad leaders. At this time, only 3 of the cadres of Baroque Works were still standing, and all the others were lying on the ground, or fainted, or screamed in pain. Sarah, Nikita and Marianne, the 3 of them are more beautiful, so the squad leaders did not attack them. A good life, watching his companions being knocked down, there is nothing he can do, and there is no way to stop it. As for those women who don't look good, such as Merry Christmas, Father's Day, since they are not beautiful women, the squad leaders will definitely not show mercy and treat them directly as men. To say, he was battling all over the floor looking for his teeth, and was lying on the ground lingering, obviously suffering heavy injuries. After all, none of the squad leaders are good, they are all ruthless and kill without blinking an eye. So it will naturally be a little heavier to start, this is inevitable. Nikita's umbrella fell into the desert, her pretty face showed horror, she looked like she had seen a ghost, and said in disbelief, "How is this possible?" Marian was relatively timid, and was directly scared to cry. Wawa burst into tears and choked up. "Don't kill me, please let me go." Sarah looked at a group of people lying down, with an extremely beautiful white face, full of horror, and said in disbelief, "How is it possible? It's impossible. This is a senior cadre in Baroque Works, how could it be defeated so quickly? No, it's fake, it must be in a dream." Sarah shook her head and lost her mind. She was really shocked and couldn't react at all. Ekolem rubbed his eyes, for fear that he had read it wrong, but when he looked around, there were a lot of people lying in front of him, all members of Baroque Works. It's too powerful, it's really too powerful. It's easy to take action and solve the senior cadres in the organization. This strength is really shocking. Burgess raised his arms, laughed loudly, and said extremely arrogantly, "What senior cadres, all the special mothers are garbage. If you want to fight with us, it's almost like calling out your boss, way ha 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 ha." Jin sneered, and said disdainfully, "I wanted to warm up, but I didn't expect these cadres to be so weak, they're rubbish to death." Luo carried the demon sword and cried, looking at him coldly. "As always," he said coldly. "This guy's devil fruit is really very good. Unfortunately, he will not develop it at all, completely wasting this Paramesha explosion fruit." Hawkins glanced at Daz Bones, and said in a low voice, "This guy is good, but unfortunately he is with the wrong person, otherwise he will become stronger." Van Augur tapped his gun on the shoulder, expressionless, "Their fate is already doomed. After all, we are going to fight the existence of Shichibukai." Bartolomeo kicked fiercely, screamed, was kicked and fainted. "What's the matter, pretending to be 5 people and 6 people, and picking your nostrils, I can't kill you." Cavendish shrugged his shoulders, looked speechless, and complained, "I can't see, you still have such bad taste, it's almost enough." Kuro pushed his glasses and said calmly and rationally, "The cadres, it's not worth mentioning at all, our target is Shichibukai crocodile. They're just some insignificant little people, there's no need to waste time on them, let's go on." Lafitte turned his cane, Vivi Isho, still so polite, said something. "I wanted to warm up, but I'm a little disappointed. But it doesn't matter, at least one conclusion can be drawn, that is, the organization of Baroque Works is really too rubbish." Looking at the cadres lying in the desert, Princess Vivi was really shocked. May's eyes widened, her face was full of surprise, she muttered, "It's too fast, it's really too fast." This is a senior cadre, and in less than a minute, they were all knocked to the ground. The strength of the squad leaders is really strong. Robin folded his black and beautiful hair, and his beautiful eyes were also shocked. He agreed and said, the strength of the two sides is not on the same level at all. The cadres of the Baroque Works Club were like sheep meeting wolves. They didn't have the ability to resist at all and were killed directly. It's not that they are weak, but the squad leaders are really too strong. Lashiu clenched her hands tightly, her pretty face showed excitement. She said happily, very good, really good. Knock down the cadres now, and then beat Crocodile again, then it's really over, hee hee. Nami patted her shoulders and said with a smile, although the squad leaders are very strong, they are not Crocodile's opponents. If you want to defeat Shichibukai, you still need Chris's shot. If you don't believe me, just watch it. Karina brushed her blue hair and said casually, I'm used to this result. At that time, playing the North Blue Overlord was done in minutes. Playing East Blue Overlord is the same, there is no difference at all. So dealing with these cadres is naturally easy, 3 punches and 2 kicks are over. The sweetheart queen stroked her pale blonde hair and smiled. Isho said, it is inevitable that these cadres will be defeated. The question now is, what to do with these 3 beauties and let them join the team. Betty took a breath, still so calm, and objected directly. That, the one who holds the umbrella doesn't have any image at all, looks like a village girl, and is very unqualified. This kind of person, the old lady doesn't like it very much. Therefore, this person must not be on board. Carrying the big iron rod, Alvita nodded lightly, smiled generously, and agreed, yes, there is something wrong with this woman, and I can't let her on board. I think, since we are going to set up a branch in Alabasta, let the 3 of them stay here and do things. Carmen's beautiful eyes lit up, and she said with a smile, this idea is very good, I support it very much. Reiju looked at Baccarat, raised her eyebrows, and said with a sweet smile, I think it's good to let the 3 of them stay in the branch. Baccarat is the eldest sister of these women. All the women will listen to what she says, and she will never refute her. She is very authoritative. Curling up her crimson hair, Isho gently said, since everyone doesn't like them very much, let the 3 of them stay here in the branch. After all, the branch has just been established, everything is difficult at the beginning, and it will definitely require a lot of manpower. At this moment, above the sky, there was an extremely cold voice. Damn brats, you've managed to piss me off. Next, I will kill you one by one. Let you know how cruel it would be to provoke Shichibukai's fate. Little devils, tremble, ha ha ha. Guys, here's a picture of Nikita. This slender figure, sweet looking, just too unqualified. Doing things in the branch, she will change and become a lady. 169. The Squad Leader and the Sand Crocodile fight. For automatic subscription. The voice fell, a figure floated in the sky, it was Crocodile. At this moment, half of his body turned into sand, drawing a curve in the air, like flying a kite, looking very light. The scene of this appearance is indeed very grand. The cadres lying on the ground were shocked when they heard Crocodile's voice, completely forgetting the pain, and all smiles on their faces. The president is here, now we are saved, ha ha ha. He laughed loudly, then coughed out a mouthful of blood, and lay on his back on the desert again, his face as pale as earth. Galtino looked at the figure in the sky, and said excitedly, the boss is here, let's see how arrogant they are now, everyone will go to hell. Bentham was beaten badly, his face swollen like a pig's head, and he mumbled something. Avenge us. The slave family will kill them with their own hands. Daz Bones sat up, his dark face turned pale, and he coughed. I am really ashamed of the boss's cultivation, and I asked you to do it yourself. Shame, this is my shame. Drowsy, before fainting, he said slowly, the squad leader is so strong, so the captain is even more terrifying. I believe that the boss will definitely be able to solve them, because the boss is Wang Shachi. Before he could finish speaking, He closed his eyes, tilted his head, and fainted. Who were still standing looked at each other in unison, smiles appeared on their pretty faces, and they breathed a sigh of relief, no longer nervous or afraid. Nikita held a small umbrella, let out an exaggerated laugh, and said something with a big laugh. Damn it guys, see how you are still babbling, ha ha ha. Mary Ann nodded, with a sweet smile on her face. She said with a smile, if the boss comes out, they will never be able to escape. It's good, I can go back to rest early and eat my favorite senbei. Sarah took a big pipe, took a puff of cigarette, and said with a smile, although they are very powerful, for the boss, it is not enough to see. Next, let's take a good look. I believe the boss will solve them quickly and avenge us. On the giant scorpion all raised their heads and looked at the silhouette that kept flying over in the sky. Karina frowned her beautiful eyebrows, and said something with a look of disdain on her perfectly fair face. In Shichibukai, the weakest group of people are also worthy of such an heir. It's really stupid. Chris is so powerful, and he doesn't like to show off as much as this guy, he's so crazy. Alvita carried the big black iron rod, nodded lightly, and said sarcastically, isn't flying so slowly on purpose to attract our attention, it's really naive. Sweetheart Queen shrugged her shoulders and complained directly, holding a cigar, wearing a fur coat, and combing a big back, it looks really grand. But it looks very powerful on the outside, but in fact, it's real power, it's rubbish to death, it's a shame for Shichibukai. Betty took a breath, and said calmly as always, as Chris said, this guy's left hand is really a golden hook, and there is a strong poison in it. The dignified Shichibukai is actually poisoned on the weapon, and no one dares to believe it. I have to say, this guy is really a sinister villain, very disgusting. Lasha glared at Crocodile fiercely, with an angry look on her pretty face, and said something very angry. It's this damn guy. It's because of him that my hometown has been turned into ruins. If there is a chance, I must kill him with my own hands to avenge the villagers' hatred. Vivi nodded heavily, with a serious expression on her face. She said very seriously, this bastard will definitely be severely punished. If you let him go easily, how can you be worthy of? People, how can you be worthy of this prosperous oasis? Robin brushed his black and beautiful hair, his eyebrows were curved, and he was intellectual and elegant. This is what Crocodile is, as always, arrogant. Shichibukai's position made him become high above. He likes to pay attention to ostentation when doing things, for fear that others will not know that he is Shichibukai. People who are so arrogant and ignorant should go to impel down to reflect deeply and repent. Reiju blinked his beautiful eyes and smiled. Next is the battle between the squad leader and Shichibukai. I'm really looking forward to it. Bakura stroked the crimson dignified and elegant. I have been waiting for this day since I went to sea. At this point, I am really excited, because Chris is about to become Shichibukai, a real big man. Happy, heartfelt joy for Chris, that's great. At this moment, Crocodile slowly fell to the desert without making any noise, as if it had no weight. At this time, half of his body was constantly changing, and a lot of fine sand appeared. After a while, a complete crocodile appeared. I saw that he was still dressed as a big brother, with a big back, a big windbreaker, a cigar, and a rebellious look on his face. You are too weak to be my subordinates at all. Crocodile glanced at the cadres on the ground, his face was cold, and he said angrily, I am Shichibukai, how can there be such a waste of men? Sure enough, no one can be trusted, I really want to immediately kill you. Leave your dog's life for the time being, and when I clean up these kid, I'll deal with you guys. Hearing the leader's words, the cadres were all startled, their faces all showing horror. But hearing his last words, knowing that there is no danger to his life, one by one finally breathed a sigh of relief and felt relieved. Daz Bones looked at Crocodile and said solemnly, President, don't worry, this is definitely the last time. Next, I will work hard to cultivate and become stronger, and I will never be knocked down again. Galtino lay on the ground, coughed, and said, I will work hard, I will never forget this shame. Bentham was taken care of, his nose was bruised and his face was swollen, and he said vaguely, today's hatred, the slave family has remembered, and will definitely take revenge. He spit out a mouthful of freshness and said with a big smile, thanks to the president for his kindness of not killing, we will definitely correct our past mistakes, and we will redouble our efforts to cultivate in the future. It's normal for the leader to be angry. Nikita held a small umbrella and laughed loudly, after all, you guys are really too weak, you were all beaten down. Not only did the mission fail, but it was also disheartened, which is really disappointing to the president. So the president will punish, that's what it should be, ha ha ha. Mary Ann wrinkled her face and said worriedly, I hope I won't. Arrange so many tasks, let me have a good rest. Sarah took a breath and sighed, we did fail in this mission. Failure to complete the work assigned by the boss, according to the rules of the organization, we must be punished, but this is. There is nothing to say. Dory carried the great sword, looked down at Crocodile, and said with a big laugh, this is the so-called Shichibukai, the strength seems too weak, Brigitte nodded and agreed, compared with the captain, it's just one day and one place, the gap is too big. Burgess raised his arms high, with an excited look on his face, and shouted, Crocodile, your special mother finally appeared, way ha 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 ha. Logia rustling fruit, Logia miasma fruit, see which one is stronger, hee hee. Poison's eyes were cold, and his smile was very ugly. Jin twisted his neck and said indifferently, the other party is Shichibukai, and it makes me very excited to be able to fight with such a person. Bartolomeo touched his nose ring, like a ghost, he smiled and said, having Shichibukai as a sparring partner, this is the glory of Lao Su, what a face to talk about, quack. Cavendish pulled out the famous sword Durandal and said something very seriously. Everyone serves snacks, but don't be hit by his hook, or you will die. Luo carrying the demon sword and crying, as always, said coldly, as long as we cooperate more closely, I don't believe that we can't beat him. Hawkins looked at Crocodile, still dead, judging from his appearance, he has a bloodbath today. Van Augur tapped his gun on the shoulder and said blankly, with the captain here, his fate is already doomed. We made a plan before, and now the situation has not changed, so let's execute it as usual. Kuro pushed his glasses, his eyes flashed with wisdom, and analyzed. He is a Shasha fruit person, and in this desert, he has a great advantage, allowing him to perfectly display his strength. But it doesn't matter, he doesn't know our abilities at all, and we are very familiar with his situation. He's at an absolute disadvantage in that regard. So we can take him by surprise, fight him with skill, and take down this Shichibukai. Lafitte turned his cane, gentle, and Vivi said with a smile, no matter. Win or lose, being able to fight Shichibukai is enough. The rest will be analyzed when we wait for the battle. Now all we need to do is have a good fight with this Shichibukai. After speaking, without hesitation, he took the lead and walked towards Crocodile. Padong jumped up and down, happily, and said with a smile, come on, team captains all come on, hee hee hee. Babo cheered and said, you are the best, and the squad leader will win. Abis blinked her big eyes, and said in a tender voice, to defeat that bad guy, let's do our best. Ekulem clenched his fists, looked serious, prayed, and said a word. Damn Crocodile, today is your day to die. Squad captains, you must win, I will pray for you. Running faster and nodding his head, with a croak, he agrees, it also hates Crocodile. In the same way, the crew members below were all very excited, shouting loudly, and their voices were so loud that they spread very far. Deputy Captain Lafitte, you are the best, my brother admires you the most, come on, ha 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 ha. Hit, captains, beat to the death, beat this Shichibukai hard, quack quack. Hurry up, I'm going to fight Shichibukai, everyone hurriedly twisted, and everyone twisted for Lao Su. Did you hear me? La la la, the captains will win, hurry up and do it, he he he. Tai Zi, don't you stop. Push me, you idiot. I am so excited, I'm going to faint. Guys, here's a picture of Marianne. This is a painter who can fight with spiritual power, and has great potential. Won't introduce too much here. If you have any questions, you can Baidu, she is really good. 170. Sand Crocodile and the Squad Leaders, a fierce battle has occurred. For automatic subscription. The sky was still gloomy, and the huge dark cloud did not disperse, blocking the sunlight, leaving a shadow on the desert, and the weather was much cooler. A gust of breeze blew Crocodile's coat, making him look even more majestic. Hockey. Damn little devils, actually take Lao Su as a practice object. Crocodile drank a cigar, tilted his head back, and said with a look of disdain, do you know who Lao Su is? Lao Su is Shichibukai under the king. His eyes swept to Robin, and he suddenly showed an angry expression, and said something vicious. Damn woman, wait for Lao Su to get rid of these. Little devil, come and concoct you. How dare you betray me? Who gave you the courage, Nico? Robin. Karina glared at him, her fair and beautiful face was full of ridicule. With your strength, you dare to threaten us. I really thought I was Shichibukai, the best in the world. Hee hee, just wait, you will definitely be slapped in the face, see how arrogant you are. Nami nodded, raised her eyebrows, and said carelessly, as Chris said, the villain dies of too much talk. A Shichibukai, the top pirate in the sea, but the result is so many words that don't correspond to his identity at all. Empty identity but no strength, it's just people like him. Alvita carried the big iron rod, smiled. Isho agreed and said something. Looks like a big brother on the outside, and pretends to be 5 people, so it won't be tiring. Look at Chris, you don't need to say anything. When you stop there, you will have the aura of a strong man. That kind of aura that dominates the world is not something that outsiders can learn. Robin folded his black and beautiful hair and sighed. At this time, he hasn't seen the situation clearly. It's really stupid. It's really ridiculous for a man like him to be Shichibukai. Such an arrogant guy should really be sent to Impel Down, where he can reflect for a lifetime. Vivi nodded again and again, with a look of indignation on her face. Yes, such a heinous villain should be imprisoned for the rest of his life. It's too hateful, this bastard is really too hateful. Lasha gritted his silver teeth, and said angrily, I will beat him later, I will go up and kick and avenge the villagers. Reiju looked at Baccarat, raised his eyebrows, and said with a sweet smile, anyway. I don't need this scorpion, why don't we go downstairs? Okay, just discuss it with Chris and see what he thinks of the fight. Baccarat is gentle Isho, graceful, full of the temperament of a lady. Then, the girls did not hesitate, they all left the giant scorpion and landed on the desert. At this time, all the squad leaders came to Crocodile. In this area, apart from the yellow sand in the sky, there are only Crocodile and Lafitte. Special mother, dressed so hockey, who is this for? Burgess raised his arms high, laughed and said, we'll see how you pretend, I'm going to stomp you under your feet, way ha 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 ha. Poison Light revealed a sinister smile, it's boring to poison ordinary people, but it's more interesting to kill Shichibukai. Jin looked at Crocodile coldly, and said indifferently, have you thought about how to die, Sand Crocodile? No matter what, this young master is going to kick him twice. I can't stand this bastard. He drags him like something. Cavendish groaned angrily. Bartolomeo showed a cruel smile, laughed and said something. I'll kick his ass, what do you think? Hearing this, Crocodile was instantly angry, drank a cigar, looked at Bartolomeo coldly, and sentenced him to death directly. Little devil, don't worry, I won't let you die too soon. I will arrest you, of course. Grind you, let you survive but not die." He could finish speaking. Van Augur lowered his gun quickly without pulling the trigger. With a bang, the bullet was like lightning. Crocodile went away, and was very prepared to hit his eyebrows. Suddenly, a big hole appeared on Crocodile's head, and he could see the vast desert behind him. There was a faint sound of rustling. Crocodile's eyebrows and the fine sand kept assembling, moving closer, and soon returned to its original state. Nothing happened. Fast marksmanship, decisive action, without the slightest hesitation. Crocodile took a breath, still so arrogant, and said arrogantly, "Little brat, your spear skills are very good, follow me in the future. As long as you are willing to surrender, Lao Su will let you out and make you a senior cadre in the organization. Little devil, think about it carefully, don't rush to refuse. If your answer does not satisfy Lao Su, then there will be no next chance, understand?" Kuro looked at Van Augur, pushed his glasses, and said calmly and rationally, "He is a Logia-capable person, he must be unexpected, otherwise your bullets will not be useful at all. After all, your time on board is too short to learn armament hockey, which is normal." Burgess looked at Van Augur, laughed, and said something. "Hey Lao Fan, this sand crocodile has taken a fancy to you. How about it? Do you want to think about it? Way ha ha ha." Luo carrying the demon sword and crying, "As always," he said coldly, "Van Augur did a good job, fast and accurate, without any ink marks, just hit it right." Cavendish was so angry that he cursed bitterly, "Damn, it's like this again, there's no way to attack. In Logatown, I just suffered this loss, and now it's the same mistake again. No, absolutely not, this young master must learn armament hockey early." Van Augur tapped the gun on the shoulder, and said with a blank face, "Logia's ability is really the most difficult one. The next battle, the main attack will be handed over to you, and I will be responsible for the sneak attack." Lafitte released his snow-white wings, flapped a few times, and issued a beating edge of crisp sound. "Gentle," Vivi smiled and said, "Crocodile, as an opponent, give you a piece of advice. Our captain said that when fighting, we must not talk too much. We must pay attention to speed and end the battle as soon as possible. So, let's just fight, do and grind." A sound, the man flew into the air, flapping his white wings, looking for the flaw in Crocodile, ready to attack at any time. Crocodile exhaled the smoke from his mouth, laughed, and said a word with disdain. "The little devils are also worthy of teaching me, ha ha ha. I gave you a chance, since you don't know how to cherish it, then let me die one by one." Arc Moon Dunes. The voice fell, a large pile of sand quietly appeared in the right hand, and the combination changed for a while, and finally formed a huge crescent-shaped sand blade. Without any hesitation, he threw his right hand fiercely, and the huge sand blade cut through the void, in the shape of a crescent moon, and quickly slashed towards Lafitte. Crocodile is an arrogant person, who does not like to look up to others, and will never allow anyone to be above himself. So the first shot is the ultimate move, which is very brave, trying to drain the moisture from Lafitte's body and turn him into a mummy. This speed is too slow. With a swoosh, Lafitte flapped his wings, dodged the huge sand blade in an instant, looked down at Crocodile, and continued to look for flaws. In the previous plan, some people were in charge of sneak attacks, some were in charge of defense, and some were in charge of offense. As the deputy captain, Lafitte was naturally a main attacking player, there is no doubt about that. Now let others interfere with Crocodile, hold him down, and make him exhausted. When the opportunity comes, Lafitte will rush down quickly, give Crocodile a fatal blow, and directly deal with this King Shichibukai. Beautiful sword blue bird. Cavendish kicked the ground with his right foot, Durandal pointed at Crocodile, and the man attacked directly like an arrow from the string. A strong air current entangled Durandal, swept up the surrounding air, and the sword chi raged, stabbing towards Crocodile. Compared to Logatown, Cavendish used this time, his attack power was sharper, and his sword chi became much stronger, far from what he could compare before. This is thanks to Chris's guidance. After all, Chris is the level of a great swordsman, a real master-level character. Teaching Cavendish, it is like playing at home. After Chris's teaching, Cavendish improved various swordsmanships, playing them more handy, and his strength skyrocketed, becoming stronger and stronger. Crocodile, taste the big fist of Lao Tzu's sandbag, way ha 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 ha. Burgess stomped the ground hard, and with a thud, the sand was stomped down, and the man was like a tank, rampaging towards Crocodile. At this moment, a crazy look appeared on his face, his right hand was tightly clenched, and a pitch-black fist appeared quietly, and he quickly completed his arming. Not to mention, Burgess is so big and a master of fighting, this battle looks like a tiger coming down the mountain, something like a roaring mountain forest. After watching it, my heart was shocked. Speaking of which, he was the first squad leader to follow Chris, and he followed closely all the way from South Blue. Under Chris's guidance, his two-color hockey has long been learned and can be used proficiently. Especially armament hockey, he practiced the most diligently. After all, as a fighting champion, what I like most is boxing, so Burgess focuses on this area. Armament hockey's mastery is really much stronger than observation hockey. Guys, the above is a picture of the arc-shaped dunes. It's a new month. Please vote for your monthly ticket. As long as there are enough monthly passes, the author's bacteria will explode immediately, and 5 changes are guaranteed a day. Kneeling and begging for a monthly pass. 171. Armament hockey of Sand Crocodile, very powerful. For automatic subscription. Damn it, you have learned hockey. Crocodile frowned, with a rare look of doubt on his face, and said in disbelief, why would a newcomer use armament hockey? Okay, very good, I'm getting more and more interested. Little devils, dance to your heart's content, but don't die too fast, goo ha ha ha. A swipe, half of his body turned into fine sand and flew quickly into the air, completely ignoring the attacks of Cavendish and Burgess. Staring at Lafitte viciously, he said in a cold tone, I hate people who are high and high. You have successfully angered me, kid. Seeing Crocodile flying into the air, Cavendish scolded angrily, bastard, don't run away. Sword was unsheathed and cast like a dragon. It was wrapped in the mighty sword energy, and the air tumbled. It was impossible to hold it back. It was scattered in all directions, and the air was filled with smoke and dust, shrouding this area. People outside can't see what's inside at all, and it's completely blocked. The mother-in-law, Shichibukai, doesn't even dare to fight with Lao Tzu, crap. Burgess stomped the ground hard and stepped on the sand to make a hole before he could stabilize his body. He's the most violent, advocating head-to-head combat, so Crocodile dodged his attack, letting his iron fist fail. This made Burgess feel very angry, very angry. Now is a good time to start. Kuro looked at Van Augur, pushed his glasses habitually, his eyes flashed with wisdom, and said a word. The smoke is full of dust, just blocking your figure. Crocodile certainly didn't find it. Next, you have to make good use of the opportunity, and don't be in a hurry. Once an attack is launched, Crocodile must be alert and it will be very difficult to attack again. Luo nodded, and said coldly as always, you are a strange soldier. You really can't make a move until the critical moment. Bartolomeo showed an ugly smile and laughed. When the time comes, this guy Crocodile will definitely be surprised, quack quack. There is only one chance to make a shot, I know that very well. Van Augur tapped his gun on the shoulder, said a word with no expression on his face. I'll leave it to you next, I won't come out so quickly. After he finished speaking, his body gradually sank, ignoring the sand surface, as if he had fallen into the water, and fell directly. Soon, Van Augur disappeared, his body was completely submerged in the desert, and everything returned to its original state, as if nothing had happened. At this time, Lafitte flapped his white wings. Vivi Isho, still politely, Crocodile, although you can fly, but the speed is too slow. Fighting me in the air isn't a sensible thing to do, crocodile. Voice fell, huh. With a sound, the person crossed a straight line in the air like lightning, and swooped down quickly. Lafitte's body exuded a magnificent momentum, with awe-inspiring killing intent, incomparably crazy and quite shocking. Brush. As soon as Lafitte came to Crocodile, he grabbed the handle with his right hand and pulled it out instantly. With a bang, it was crisp and loud, and a snow-white long sword suddenly appeared, extremely sharp, with a sharp cold glow, very scary. Suddenly, the color of the blade changed, starting from the handle, it became pitch black, and it continued to spread, and soon the entire blade turned pitch black. Cover with a layer of armor, the best for those with Logia ability, armament hockey. Having said that, it is normal for Lafitte to get on the ship from West Blue, follow Chris, and learn armament hockey. Besides, as the deputy captain, he can't even be a two-color hockey, so his position should be replaced. Damn, another brat who knows how to hockey. Crocodile was mad, he really didn't understand, why all this? Newcomers, little devils, all of them can master the power in the new world. This is really incredible, and it leaves Crocodile so confused and completely at a loss. Look at you armament hockey, you have only a short training time, you are just a novice barely getting started. Crocodile drank a cigar with an arrogant expression on his face, and said disdainfully, I'll let you see what a real armament hockey is. Sword wrapped around armament, Crocodile was very calm, and the golden hook in his left hand changed quietly. The original golden hook instantly turned into a pitch black, flashing with a metallic black luster, which looked very dazzling. Fly for Lao Su, damn brat. Crocodile roared, and bent his left hand back in a vertical shape, ready to go, accumulating sufficient strength. His eyes turned cold, and he slammed the sharp sword that came straight from Lafitte. The Zeely sword stabbed on the golden hook, making a very crisp sound. After listening to it, it was very harsh, and the teeth were almost sour. Of the sharp sword and the golden hook not only made an explosion, but at the place where it was struck, there were also a few scattered sparks, jumping and falling down. The air between the two trembled, and faint ripples emerged, spreading outward. Even the air vibrated, showing how powerful the blow was. Fluttering, a huge force came, and Lafitte couldn't stabilize his body, and his body flew backwards for a while, then flapped his white wings, a gust of wind blew up, and stopped. As expected of Shichibukai, it's not that easy to deal with. Lafitte's wings flapped gently, and Vivi said with a smile, my armament hockey, who has been practicing for a long time, can't compare to you at all, Crocodile. The effect of the force is mutual, although Crocodile repelled Lafitte, but he also received the reaction force himself, and his body fell a little. Glancing coldly at Lafitte, he said arrogantly, the strength is very good, kid, you have successfully attracted my interest. I get rid of the others first, as for you, I will be the last to clean up. After he finished speaking, he crossed a curve in the air, and the fine sand on his body kept falling, heading towards the sand surface. At this time, the yellow sand in the sky had all fallen to the ground, and the dust had settled, revealing all the squad leaders. Burgess looked at Crocodile, laughed, and said sarcastically, sure enough, he's an arrogant man, exactly as the captain said. It's obvious that I can't stay in the air for that long, and I can't kill Lafitte, so I just made an excuse and said that it successfully attracted your interest. Bah, what Shichibukai, it's just rubbish. Poison Dew fiercely, smiled strangely and said, it seems that this Shichibukai is really good in strength. I wonder if his armament hockey can resist my miasma, hee. Jin clenched the two strangely shaped weapons, frowned, and said something indifferent. Sure enough, you can become a Shichibukai because you have two brushes. I remember that the captain said that this guy once had a fight with the Four Emperors Whitebeard, so it is normal for him to have two-color hockey. Bartolomeo touched his nose ring, looked at Lafitte, and joked, Deputy Captain, fighting alone with Shichibukai, are you injured? You are too fierce, without our help. You are directly fighting with him. You are too strong, ha ha ha. Cavendish cursed. Damn it, it's Logia again, and it's two-color hockey again, it's so hard to deal with. I don't believe it anymore, there are so many of us that we can't beat a Shichibukai at the bottom. What a joke. Luo frowned, and said coldly, people have been famous for many years, if they didn't have the ability, they would have been killed long ago, where can it be our turn? Although his two-color hockey is stronger than us, but so what, we have so many people, I don't believe that he can't be killed. Hawkins is still dead, and said in a low voice, if you want to win, you still have to make a strange move, otherwise there is no possibility. Kuro pushed his glasses, expressionless, and said, pray for a weaker opponent, that's impossible. Crocodile is a person who has been in the New World after all, and it has been more than 20 years since he became Shichibukai. Even if he neglects to exercise, his strength continues to decline. Without the ambitions of his youth, his whole person has been degraded very thoroughly. But even so, he is also an old man who has been famous for a long time, not us. Newcomers can be compared, there is no doubt about this. So to compete with him against hockey, we must be the losers. This is inevitable. Kuro looked at Lafitte in the sky and murmured, I originally thought that the gap between the vice-captain and Crocodile was not very huge. It seems that Crocodile's strength is much stronger than I thought, and it is not so easy to deal with. Too difficult to write. I've written this chapter since I wrote this morning. The author is really wanting to cry without tears. No way, this chapter is hockey's collision, it's really hard to write, I'm drunk. 172. Oka is lurking under the desert, ready to attack. For automatic subscription. At this time, Crocodile had already landed on the desert, and the fine sand on half of his body kept receding, returning to its original appearance. That's right, you guys. Little devils, it's really good. Crocodile drank a cigar and looked like a big boss, and said coldly, I haven't done it for a long time, so today is definitely a good day for you both. Being able to die in the hands of Shichibukai, even if you are in hell, you will be very happy, ha ha ha. Peripheral area. Listening to Crocodile's arrogant voice, Nami couldn't help frowning her beautiful eyebrows, and said a word of disgust on her perfectly fair face. Why is this person so annoying? It's really annoying. Alvita stood the big black iron rod in front of him, sneered, and said disdainfully, this kind of person, damn it, can't let him appear in this world. Desaya brushed his red and yellow hair with a serious look on his face, speaking of which, these big figures are very scary. He's the bottom group in Shichibukai. His strength is already very good, at least he can use two-color hockey, and he can use it proficiently. With his strength, he is actually at the bottom of Shichibukai. Can imagine how terrifying the strongest group of Shichibukai are. Queen Sweetheart looked at her, raised her eyebrows, smiled Isho and said, isn't Chris answered your question last time? Shichibukai's strongest eagle eye. His strength is admiral level, there is no doubt about that. After all, the world's greatest swordsman is not. Just kidding. Betty took a breath and said calmly as always, you guys need to know how many years Crocodile has practiced. He is in his 40s now, and he has practiced for more than 20 years than Christopher, but his strength is like this. Seriously, he's been living on a dog these days, and he's rubbish to death. At this time, Karina touched her chin that was as white as jade, her beautiful eyes were flowing, her eyes were full of cunning, she laughed to herself, and made a silver bell-like sound, clear and sweet. Perona had the best relationship with her, floated to her side, looked up and down, her pretty face was full of doubts, and she asked curiously. Hey, what kind of nerves are you missing? A person standing there giggling and making a hee-hee sound, is this the rhythm of going crazy? Karina rolled her eyes at her, angrily, let's. Why am I giggling? Don't talk nonsense, okay, be careful I hit you. HMPH, you didn't find out, right? This girl is different. She has already seen everything clearly. Makino looked at her with curved eyebrows and a sweet and gentle smile and said, "What did you find? Can you tell me?" in a low voice. Kaya lightly nodded her head, smiling like a flower, very cute, and agreed. "Yes, Sister Karina, can you tell me? Xiaoya would like to know too." Needy looked at the squad leaders, then turned to look at Karina, and said with a sweet smile, "What did you find? Don't be a jerk, tell us quickly." Others didn't speak, and looked at Karina one by one, with curious expressions on their pretty faces, eager to know the answer. Being watched by all the girls and seeing the curious expressions on their faces, Karina was extremely proud and very proud. No one has noticed, but she is the most powerful, and she has discovered something different. "I knew it, you definitely didn't post it." Karina blinked her beautiful eyes and said with a smile, "After all, I'm the only one who holds the eyes, hee hee." At this time, Robin put his arms around him, looked in the direction of the squad leader, and had a thoughtful look on his face. Vivi Isho, intellectually and elegantly said, "I have found something different after being prompted by you. It's amazing, so many of us didn't find it, and you alone found the problem. Your vision is really not good." Vivi frowned her slender willow eyebrows, her face full of doubts, and she asked quickly, "What are you two talking about? Why can't I understand it at all? It looks so complicated." Carmen blinked her beautiful eyes, and said inexplicably, "I looked around, but I didn't find any problems. I really don't know what secrets the two of you found." Reiju brushed her pink hair. "Gentle Isho, dignified and elegant, have you not noticed that there is one person missing?" Bakura nodded lightly and said with a sweet smile, "What Karina said must be about Van Augur. He just took advantage of the smoke and dust, and outsiders couldn't see the situation inside, so he secretly hid in the desert, ready to give Crocodile a fatal blow." Hearing Bakura's words, the girls' eyes lit up, their faces showed a sudden realization, and they finally understood what was going on. Nami took a serious look at the squad leaders, searched for a while, and said with a big grin, "That's true, I really can't find any trace of Van Augur. Okay, he's a sniper, and he hides in the desert to make a sneak attack. Stains, Crocodile will be troublesome now." Karina's beautiful eyes were shining, she covered her mouth and laughed lightly, she said something very proud. "You guys are slow enough to respond, and it's only now that you realize that you can't have enough eyesight, hee hee hee." Perona floated in the air, put her small hands in front of her, made a shush gesture, and whispered, "Everyone can't speak so loudly, but don't be heard by Crocodile. This matter must be sneaky. If it is publicized, it will not be possible to carry out a sneak attack. Everyone should know it." Princess Vivi's pretty face showed a look of surprise. She suddenly opened her mouth, agreed, and echoed, "That's it, Van Augur is really gone. Since we have discovered this secret, we really can't say more, lest someone who has a heart will hear it and affect the plans of the squad leaders. That's not good." Alvida looked at the man beside her, and Isho asked, "Chris, you must know where Van Augur is. Can you tell us quietly? I really want to know where he is hiding." Desaya nodded, her beautiful eyes lit up, and she hurriedly said, "That's right, that's a good question, and I really want to know the answer." Others didn't speak, and looked at Chris one by one without blinking, wondering where Van Augur was hiding. Chris put his arms around him, stood quietly, looked straight ahead, and said something calmly as always. He was lurking under Burgess, about 3 meters above the sand. Hearing what Chris said, the girls hurriedly looked forward and began to search for Burgess. I saw him standing behind Crocodile, clenching his huge fists, and it seemed that he would burst out at any time and launch a violent attack. And the desert under him was bland and unremarkable, without the slightest movement, just ordinary sand surface, really unremarkable at all. No wonder Crocodile couldn't find it, so it was. The sweetheart queen stroked her pale blonde hair and said with a wry smile, "If it wasn't for Chris's hint, who would have known that there was a person hiding there? It's impossible." Meidi nodded lightly, smiled Isho, beautiful and generous. It's exactly the same as the sand surface next to it. It's really impossible to see it at all. Without the observation hockey, it's really impossible to spot Van Auger's tracks with the eyes alone. Makino looked at the girls with a gentle smile on her beautiful and refined face, and said something. Speaking of which, Van Auger's fruit ability is really special. Not only can it be drilled into the ground, even in the desert, it will not be affected at all. This Paramesha wears fruit, it's really suitable for sneak attack. Robin looked at Chris, eyebrows curved, intellectual and classical, showing the demeanor of a talented woman. Kyonchin Isho asked. Chris, do you think Van Auger's sneak attack will succeed? Here, you have the deepest knowledge and the richest combat experience, and you are an absolute expert. So, I really want to hear your opinion, and I believe that the answer you give is definitely correct. Robin turned to look at them, and Vivi said with a smile, I believe it's not just me who thinks so. Everyone must want to hear your opinion. That's right. Vivi nodded heavily, hummed. Mei looked at Chris, and said with a sweet smile, I really want to know the answer. It's not an ordinary thought. Others didn't speak, they all nodded. Their opinions were surprisingly unanimous, and they all wanted to hear Chris's analysis. After all, of all the people here, his strength is the strongest, and his fighting literacy is also the most powerful. As long as what Chris said, it is definitely worth believing, and the women will not doubt it at all. Big guys, thank you for the monthly pass today and end here. I will continue to thank you tomorrow, everyone can rest assured. That, if there is a monthly pass, please continue to send it to the younger brother. The younger brother bowed and thanked. 173. Sand Crocodile launched a fierce attack, Desert Sword. For automatic subscription. Van Auger's boarding time is too short. Chris still clasped his hands in front of him, still so calm and indifferent. He who doesn't know two-color hockey can't play the sharpshooter's ability at all. If you want to sneak attack on Crocodile, with his current strength, he can't do it at all. The girls fell silent, did not speak, thought carefully about what Chris said, and nodded lightly one by one, with a thoughtful look on their pretty faces. The desert below Burgess, Nami smiled sweetly and innocently, and said carelessly, speaking of which, Van Auger does not have observation hockey. He is hiding underground and doesn't know the situation above. It is indeed very difficult to succeed in a sneak attack. Alvita stood the big iron bar in front of him, smiled Isho and said, Chris is right, it seems that Van Auger, the amazing soldier, won't play a big role. After all, Crocodile has the observation hockey, and as soon as Van Auger emerges, it will surely be discovered. Makino brushed the dark green hair in front of his forehead, and said something as gentle and generous as ever. Actually, what I'm curious about is how Van Auger breathes in the desert. There is no air under the ground. It is incredible that he could stay for such a long time. Vivi nodded lightly, her eyebrows curved, and she said with a sweet smile, I'm also curious about what you said. However, the piercing fruit is so magical that it can pass through any non-living material, so it is not unacceptable to breathe in the desert. Robin sighed and smiled bitterly. Speaking of which, two-color hockey is really too difficult to cultivate. If I hadn't joined the team, I wouldn't even know there were armament hockey and observation hockey in this world. I've been working hard these days. I've been practicing hockey hard. I'm really at a loss, and I don't have the slightest thought. It's really difficult to learn two-color hockey. Queen Sweetheart shrugged her shoulders, her pretty face showing a helpless look, and said with emotion, I can only blame me for being so rubbish. I have no talent for this at all. Here we are, I am the third to board the ship, coming all the way from West Blue, through North Blue, to East Blue, and then into the Great Passage, to the Kingdom of Alabasta. It's been so many days, I haven't learned anything yet. I'm really shameless, alas. Betty glanced at her sideways, and said angrily, if you don't practice hard, you will be fishing for 3 days and drying the net for 2 days. How can you learn hockey? Don't joke. Kaya looked at Betty, Her beautiful eyes were shining, her fair and delicate little face showed admiration, and she praised. Sister Betty is the best, not only armament hockey, but also observation hockey. And the fruit ability is so powerful, it's really great. I adore you, Sister Betty. Reiju nodded lightly, gracefully, and Yanran Isho said, Betty's strength is definitely the strongest among us, there is no doubt about that. So, we all have to learn from her, practice hard, and become stronger. Nojiko's eyebrows are curved, and Isho is sweet, agreeing, indeed, Sister Betty can do two-color hockey, which is not something ordinary people can do. The others didn't say much, just nodded, agreeing with Bailey, and not questioning anything. In their opinion, Betty is indeed wrong, more than a little bit stronger than them, not on the same level at all. Learn from my mother. Betty took a puff of cigarette, with a look of disgust on her pretty face, and said speechlessly, You guys are trying to kill me, what are you kidding me? If you want to learn from it, then the object should be Boa Hancock. This woman is the real powerhouse and deserves the respect of all women. Okay, let's stop talking about it, watch the battle with peace of mind, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Hearing her words, the girls put aside the topic, did not continue chatting, and looked at each one seriously. The battle area ahead. Lafitte was still flying in the air, flapping her snow-white wings, looking down at everyone below. He had discovered the anomaly and knew that Van Auger had hid in the desert, ready to launch a sneak attack on Crocodile. In this case, it was a plan that had been made long ago, so Lafitte would not be surprised. Everyone, pay attention, Crocodile's strength is stronger than we thought. Lafitte Vivi Isho, suavely said, the armament collision just now illustrates a problem. Although he is a Logia-capable person, his fighting technique is not too weak, he is definitely much stronger than us. In short, put away your contempt, don't underestimate him, you must pay attention to it, and don't be careless. Kuro took a few steps to the left and reminded the squad leaders, this was the code word that he said before. At this time, Kuro has secretly started to control the pressure of the atmosphere, and when he attracts Crocodile, he can detonate and kill this guy. Don't worry, we have seen Crocodile's strength clearly and will not underestimate him. Kuro said indifferently, it turns out that none of the characters who can become Shichibukai are good people. Luo was still so cold and said, I have seen the horror of Doflamingo, so I will not underestimate any Shichibukai. Even if this person is at the bottom of Shichibukai, I won't underestimate it. Hawkins nodded and said in a low voice, being able to sit on Shichibukai's throne for such a long time speaks for itself. Burgess frowned, with an impatient look on his face. I said can we all be more neat, and if we want to fight, just start the fight. Speaking so much nonsense, it's useless, it's over. After he finished speaking, his footsteps stomped on the sand surface and stepped on a hole, and the man was like an arrow from the string, rushing towards Crocodile. He clenched his right fist and wrapped armament hockey in an instant, ready to face off against Crocodile for a bloody battle. Beautiful sword blue bird. Cavendish used this sword move again, the man and the sword were one, and stabbed towards Crocodile. Sword chi is violent, the air is vibrating, the momentum is full, and it is full of oppression, which is shocking. The face of Burgess and Cavendish's attack, Crocodile showed a disdainful look and said coldly, it's you two little brats again, are you courting death? In that case, I will kill you two first and send you to hell. Desert sword. The voice fell, the right hand turned into fine sand, and quickly combined to form a sharp sand blade. Without any hesitation, he directly faced Burgess and slashed down. Immediately, the sand blade in the right hand became extremely huge, several meters high, cut the sand surface, and slashed towards Burgess as quickly as lightning. At this time, the huge sand blade is dark black on it, with armament hockey obviously attached, which increases the attack power a lot, and it is necessary to kill Burgess directly. As for Cavendish's offense, Crocodile doesn't care at all. Kid who can't hockey, even swordsmanship. No matter how powerful, no matter how sharp the moves, it is impossible to hurt him. This is the power of the Logia devil fruit. Once it becomes elemental, it can evade all physical attacks without getting hurt at all. So, Crocodile doesn't pay attention to Cavendish at all, and naturally doesn't bother to pay attention to his swordsmanship attacks. Bosses, the above is the picture of the desert sword. The author has a sore throat, a little uncomfortable, and went to bed first. Originally, I wanted to write more in this chapter, but I couldn't. I'm sorry guys. 174. The squad leaders, show your skills and defeat the sand crocodiles. For automatic subscription. Damn, how dare you ignore this young master. Seeing Crocodile completely ignoring his assault, Cavendish was angry and scolded. Burgess didn't stop. Facing the huge sand blade, he charged directly, looking like he was not afraid of death. Desert sword, what rubbish, look at Lao Tzu. Bartolomeo jumped in front of Burgess, crossed his hands, folded his index and middle fingers, his face was calm, and he gave a low drink. Protective barrier. A swipe, a transparent wall appeared in front of him, gleaming, blocking him and Burgess directly behind. Bang! A loud noise came, the sand blade cut into the protective barrier and was blocked directly, unable to continue going. ZZZ's huge sand blade cut through the transparent wall, making a crisp sound. Countless sparks emerged from the cut, jumped continuously, and finally fell on the desert. At the same time, the fine sand also fell, and the sand blade became smaller and smaller. Finally, the huge sand blade disappeared. Crocodile's right hand combined for a while, the fine sand receded and returned to its original appearance. Looking at the transparent wall, I saw that it was sparkling, translucent, without a single crack at all. Shocked. Incredibly horrified. Crocodile's eyes widened, he looked like he had seen a ghost, and said in disbelief, how could it be possible that Lao Tzu's desert sword was blocked? No, it's impossible, it must be a dream. At this time, Cavendish roared, go to hell, bastard crocodile. There was a loud explosion, and the sword energy raged, hitting Crocodile hard, smashing his body into a piece of fine sand and blowing it all over the place. The air was filled with dust, which slowly combined. Crocodile's head appeared, followed by his hands and feet. No armament hockey, no matter how powerful the sword move is, what can it do? Crocodile showed a proud look on his face, as always arrogant, and said with disdain, with your strength, I don't care about it at all. Cavendish turned quickly, glared at Crocodile fiercely, and said something with a frown. Damn it, it really doesn't work. However, doing this can still play a role in restraining to some extent, and this can be considered to achieve its purpose. Suddenly, Burgess rushed over and shouted, take a punch, Crocodile. As soon as he finished speaking, his right fist turned pitch black and slammed straight at Crocodile. Fierce and thunderous, this punch was obviously made with energy, and all the power burst out. There was a gust of fist wind, showing how powerful this blow was. Yes, fuck him, don't let Lao Tzu resist for you in vain. Bartolomeo had removed the protective barrier, with an excited look on his face, cheering for Burgess. In the plan, Bartolomeo is responsible for defense, and whichever squad leader encounters danger, he is responsible for saving the field and resisting Crocodile's attack. At this time, the fine sand on Crocodile's body has been assembled and turned into a complete person. Competing with Lao Tzu, hockey, is simply beyond your own power. Crocodile sneered, grabbed his right hand, and instantly armed. Without the slightest hesitation, he slammed into Burgess' fist directly. Between the two, a strong airflow formed, causing the air to vibrate faintly. With a bang, the two jet black ones collided, and the air vibrated even more, as if faint ripples were formed. Damn, how can you be so powerful? Crocodile felt a tremendous force, unable to stabilize his body, and he flew backwards. Glide all the way in the desert, forming a clear trace, and the smoke and dust also rose up and floated in the air. Burgess frowned, and Vivi's pain in his fist told him the truth. In this armament hockey competition, he is at a disadvantage, not Crocodile's opponent. If I hadn't been stronger, I would have suffered a lot. Burgess looked at the direction that Crocodile was flying backwards, which was exactly where Kuro had designed it before, and couldn't help but smile and said something very happy. It seems that Lao Su's task has finally been completed. At this time, Kuro raised his right hand slightly, and Vivi spread out his 5 fingers, facing Crocodile's direction, moving quickly and giving a firm grip. Blast! Suddenly, there was a loud noise in the direction that Crocodile flew upside down. Bang! The sound is shocking, very loud, and it is very uncomfortable for the ears after listening to it. A huge mushroom cloud slowly rose from the desert. Smoke and dust permeated everywhere, and the yellow sand filled the sky, completely shrouding this area, and outsiders could not see the situation inside at all. What's going on? Why did the explosion happen suddenly, and what happened? Nikita was holding a small umbrella with a surprised look on her pretty face. Her eyes widened as she stared at the sand in the sky. She really couldn't understand it. With a terrified look on her face, Marianne murmured, "It's too scary. There will be an explosion. This time the leader must be in trouble." I just saw that. The man with glasses, facing the boss's direction, clasped his right hand, and then exploded. Sarah frowned her beautiful eyebrows, showing a serious look, and said very seriously, "This must be the ability of the devil fruit, there is no other possibility. Just with not the same, it's another form of explosion that can take place in the air, and it's silent." "Awesome, what kind of devil fruit is this? How can it be so terrifying? It's really scary." Galtino sat up, his face was pale, he coughed and said, "The boss is a Logia-capable person, so he will be fine." Looking like he had seen a ghost, he said in disbelief, "What kind of ability is this? It is too powerful. If we were in the explosion area, we would definitely be bombed to the point where there would be no slag left, and we couldn't die any longer." Bentham looked at Kuro's figure, deeply remembered it in his mind, and said in fear, "This person cannot be provoked, and he must not be chosen as an opponent. It is really terrible." Daz Bones looked at the huge mushroom cloud and saw that it was still rising, not stopping, unfolding, getting bigger and bigger. With such explosive power, if I was hit, I would definitely not survive, there is no doubt about that. This person's fruit ability is really powerful. It is an unheard of ability to actually detonate the air. Ecolem looked at the yellow sand in the sky and said with a big smile, "This time, even if you can't blow up that bastard crocodile, at least it can hurt him. If it can be seriously injured, it would be the best, ba 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 ba." Dory looked at Brigitte and laughed. These people work together really closely, and they exert their combat power perfectly. Brigitte nodded and said with a smile, "They made a detailed plan while on the road. We are very familiar with Crocodile here. As for him, he is very unfamiliar to us and does not know the fruit ability of the squad leaders. Speaking of which, this battle is getting more and more interesting. I'm looking forward to the final result." Looking at the yellow sand that filled the sky, the girls became interested one by one, and couldn't help but talk about it. Nami blinked her big eyes, and a pure and sweet smile appeared on her fair and beautiful face. It's amazing, they really know how to cooperate. This time Crocodile will definitely not be arrogant, ha ha ha. Alvida nodded slightly and said with admiration, "They have a clear division of labor, everyone knows what they should do, and they plan very carefully. And Kuro's IQ is really very high, and he can control the situation just right." The Queen's sweetheart stroked her pale blonde hair, and Isho said something with a smile. Bartolomeo defended, Burgess was the most powerful, forced Crocodile to sink in, and Kuro exploded the atmosphere. Zizzo, this series of plans is really seamless, it can be called a classic battle. Robin Vivi Isho, still so intellectual and elegant, as the old saying goes, tigers can't hold back wolves. Crocodile is much stronger than the squad leaders, but as long as the wheel tactics are adopted, it is still possible to defeat Shichibukai. Vivi looked at the mushroom cloud and exclaimed, the squad leaders are amazing, they cooperated so perfectly. Reiju touched his delicate chin, blinked his beautiful eyes, and said with a smile, with this cooperation experience, if they join hands in the future, they will definitely be more handy. Now their strength is not strong enough, so the effect they exert is naturally a little worse. But it's all temporary, and it's bound to get better in the future. Bakura folded his crimson hair together, his eyebrows curved, and said dignifiedly, it's the first time they've worked together, and it's really good to have such an effect. No matter what. Whatever the final result, their merits are all worthy of praise. Others did not speak, but nodded, agreeing with what Bakura said. In their opinion, this cooperation of the squad leaders is really very successful, it has played a role as a role model, and it is worth learning. Big guys, fighting is very difficult to write, it is too difficult. Part about Doflamingo is not difficult to write. But this time, the squad leaders fought Crocodile, there was too much to think about, and it took a long time for a chapter to be drunk. 175. Fierce Battle, the battle has entered the white-hot stage. For automatic subscription. How about it, did you blow up this guy? Burgess swept the fine sand on top of his hair, the smoke had faded a little, his vision gradually recovered, and he could see what was inside. Cavendish frowned and said solemnly, I could see it clearly when the explosion just now, Crocodile became elemental. So this time the explosion should have been avoided by this bastard. Luo looked at Kuro, and asked coldly as always, have you hurt him badly, you know best. Bartolomeo put his hands in the pockets of his trousers, looking like he was tugging, and said something in a very sure tone. We cooperated so perfectly, without the slightest flaw. If this can't hit him hard, I will definitely not believe it. Kuro habitually pushed his glasses, expressionless, and said lightly, if nothing else, Crocodile was elementalized at the last minute. So this time the explosion, let alone hit him hard, even if he was slightly injured, is impossible. Jin held the two strangely shaped weapons with a serious expression, if that's the case, then this crocodile is too difficult to deal with. At this moment, a cold voice came from the front, with a strong tone and full of anger. Damn little devils, it's an unforgivable sin to actually make a fool of yourself. Smoke and dust were scattered, the dust settled, the huge mushroom cloud had disappeared, and it was dispersed with the wind, and the fine sand spread all over the desert. Hearing Crocodile's voice, the squad leaders stopped chatting and hurriedly looked over. I saw Crocodile's body, constantly assembling, with messy hair, no longer that big back. The windbreaker he was wearing was tattered, with several large holes, and he could no longer wear it. Crocodile like this is really down to the extreme. Looks like a beggar. Crocodile, why are you so embarrassed? Like a fool, way ha 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 ha. Burgess raised his arms and looked excited, laughing and sneering. Bartolomeo touched his nose ring, like a ghost, he smiled and said, what Shichibukai, like a garbage, quack. Cavendish sneered, although it didn't hurt him badly, it's enough to be able to combat his arrogance. Crocodile, your subordinates are watching here. Your image of a beggar will be remembered in their hearts and cannot be forgotten. Jin nodded and said disdainfully, yes, you have lost your prestige, Crocodile. Shichibukai like you, just surrender your throne, we can allow you to surrender. Lafitte was still flying in the air, flapping her snow-white wings, and Vivi laughed, Crocodile, if you are willing to surrender, our captain will agree. But your Shichibukai throne must be handed over to our captain. This is a non-negotiable matter. Not to mention, seeing the appearance of Crocodile, the members of Baroque Works all had different thoughts in their hearts. Mikita turned the small umbrella, wrinkled Luyi's eyebrows, muttered softly, and said something. Is this our boss? why is he so cowardly? He's a dignified Shichibukai, but he was beaten up. What's the difference between him and a beggar? It seems that the leader is not invincible, that the identity of Shichibukai, right? Mary Ann shrugged her shoulders, her face wrinkled, and she said speechlessly, this is troublesome, I don't know when it will be hit. I really want to go back to bed early, and then eat some senbei. It seems that I can't do it, it's annoying. Sarah brushed the dark blue hair in front of her forehead, her pretty face showed a dignified look, and whispered, it seems that the strength of the president is not that strong. When we heard that he was Shichibukai, everyone was very excited, very optimistic about his strength, and thought this battle could be over in minutes. But now, not only did the battle not end, but instead, it was beaten like this. It looked extremely sloppy, and there was no place where the previous scenery was strong. The cadres lying on the ground were shaken when they saw the ugly appearance of Crocodile, and felt as if their faith had collapsed. At this time, Crocodile's tall and mighty image in their eyes has disappeared, and it is no longer worthy of their belief. Coughing up with a disappointed look on his face, he said to himself, I thought Shichibukai was an invincible existence, but I didn't expect it to be like this. The captain hasn't shot yet, and there are still 2 giants watching. Under such circumstances, the boss can't take them down, which is really disappointing. Gardino's face was ashen, and he said in disbelief, the leader is a Logia-capable person, how could this be? Isn't Shichibukai the most powerful pirate in the ocean? Why can't the boss deal with them? Bentham lay on the ground and said with a sad face, the slave family originally expected the president to be able to show his power, but now the slave family is so sad and disappointed. I hope the president can win, otherwise we'll really be finished. The slave family doesn't want to die, ahem. Daz Bones has always been stern, but now he's confused too, frowning and saying a word in disbelief. I've seen pictures of Shichibukai, and the president is indeed Shichibukai Sand Crocodile, I can guarantee this. But why the combat power is so weak, this is really inexplicable. At this time, Crocodile took out a cigar, lit it again, and took a deep breath. Immediately afterwards, without any hesitation, he pulled his right hand and threw the windbreaker on his back to the side, as if he was throwing a piece of garbage. Seen that Crocodile is very dissatisfied with this ragged clothes and regards it as his own shame. Very well, you guys. You are doing a really good job. Crocodile combed his hair, turned his head back into a big back, looked at the squad leaders with cold eyes, and said a cruel smile. Little devils, I remember you. I hope you can dance to your heart's content in the future, don't let Lao Su down. The battle, start now. Crocodile looked in Kuro's direction and said proudly, little brat, I will throw you into the pool and make you food for banana crocodiles. Dare to let Lao Su make such a fool of yourself, you really deserve to be damned. Burgess scorned Isho and said loudly, Crocodile, you, an idiot, what else would you do other than threatening people? Dignified Shichibukai, he doesn't look like a big man at all. Rory is rambling, it's so annoying. A person with ink marks like you is also worthy of being Shichibukai. I really laughed out my big teeth. Eat Lao Su's punch. He stomped the sand with his right foot, and with a bang, the ground sank, and people rushed towards Crocodile like a cannonball. His right hand had turned pitch black, and he was armed, ready to confront Crocodile. Since armament hockey can't fight, then use brute force to deal with him, to press people down, do not believe that Crocodile can't be killed. Crocodile, don't be too arrogant, you don't have the capital to be arrogant. Lafayette flapped his wings, and a gust of wind blew up, and with a bang, people had come to Crocodile's head. Sword turned pitch black, and the tip of the sword was extremely sharp, which made people feel fearful after seeing it. Luo seized the fighter plane, without any hesitation, put his left hand in front of him, spread his 5 fingers, Vivi let out a low voice. Slaughterhouse. The voice fell, with him as the center, a translucent hemisphere appeared, wrapping him up, looking quite strange and mysterious. A swoosh, Luo instantly disappeared in place, without any trace of movement, and quietly appeared behind Crocodile. Go to hell, damned Shichibukai. The demon sword Guiku had already been pulled out, showing a pitch-black cover, covering armament hockey, and stabbed towards Crocodile's back. Speaking of which, Luo has been following Chris for a long time. So he learned armament hockey, which is not a very strange thing. The battle with Crocodile, which has been written for several chapters, is almost over. In the 2 chapters, Defeat the Sand Crocodile, no longer write this content, I believe you are tired of it. 176. Sand Crocodile is too strong, Burgess is crippled. For automatic subscription. Lao Tzu's nickname, the King of the Desert. In the desert, no one is my opponent, and no one can defeat me Crocodile. Crocodile sneered, and said with disdain, I just now let you see the power of Logia rustling fruit. Absolute defense. Voice fell, there was a swipe, and the sand under my feet flew up from all directions, forming a combination as fast as lightning. An instant, a large ball composed of fine sand appeared in front of everyone. At this time, Crocodile's body was no longer visible, and he hid directly in the sand ball, acting like a shrunken turtle. It can also be seen from this that Crocodile is very confident in his defense and directly ignores the armament attack of the 3 people. Seeing the defense skills used by Crocodile, in Chris's mind, the absolute defense of Gaara's move in Naruto flashed. One is the absolute defense made by the tailed beast, and the other is the Logia sand fruit, both of which are the incarnation of sand, they are too similar. At this moment, Burgess roared loudly, break it to me. Then, all 3 of the 3 attacks fell on the ball of sand. Bang bang bang, 3 crisp sounds came, and I saw a lot of fine sand falling from the sand ball, as if a snake was shedding its skin, quietly changing. At this time, there are 3 marks left on the sand ball. One is a punch from Burgess, and the other 2 are sharp sword thrusts. Among them, the deepest traces are the swordsmanship left by Lafitte. Attack. Followed by Burgess, Luo with the lightest traces. The results were all the same, only the surface of the sand ball was broken, and there were still layers of fine sand inside. As for Crocodile's figure, of course, he was still hiding in the sand ball, and he couldn't touch his half hair at all. Little devils, these are not ordinary sand, all of which are the most solid grains of sand in the desert. Crocodile was wrapped in the sand ball, made a dull voice, and said with a sneer, just rely on you rubbish, and also want to break Lao Tzu's defense. Death to Lao Tzu, desert thrust. The voice fell, the surface of the sand ball changed, as if something terrifying was about to run out of it. Get out of the way. Lafitte noticed something was wrong, his voice was extremely urgent, and after a roar, his snow-white wings fluttered. A swoosh, it flew into the air and avoided it far away. Slaughterhouse. Luo also noticed the abnormality, his left hand was quickly buckled upside down, the 5-fingered Vivi spread out, and a translucent hemisphere surrounded him. A swipe, the figure disappeared instantly, appeared beside Hawkins, and avoided it far away. What's the matter? Each one runs faster than a rabbit. 3. Burgess was the slowest. He cursed loudly, without hesitation, and stomped on the sand with his right foot. Stepping on a circular pit, the person quickly flew backwards to avoid it. Damn, you 2 escaped. Crocodile had already used observation hockey to perceive the situation outside. Seeing that Lafitte and Luo were too fast, he chose to give up. The 2 of them escaped, then I will go first. As soon as the words were finished, the surface of the sand ball bulged instantly, and when one appeared, the bottom appeared pitch black, and quickly spread to the tip of the cone. This is an armed awl, the tip of the awl is flashing with a sharp cold light, and after seeing it, the eyes are faintly painful, like a needle stick. Sharpness is evident. Go. With a sound, the sand cone broke away from the sand ball, just like a rocket propeller, opened up the space, and a breeze blew up, stabbing towards Burgess as quickly as lightning. "Get out of the way, Burgess." Lafitte and the others, seeing such a critical situation, hurriedly spoke out, and their faces showed anxious expressions. Bartolomeo threw his arm and said angrily, "Damn, the speed is too fast, there is no way to cover grass. Damn crocodile, this is trying to kill Lao Su." Burgess people are still, flying upside down, watching that. The sand cones fly, and the hairs on their bodies stand up. Too fast, and the oncoming force was so fierce that it was impossible to avoid it, and it seemed that the only way to resist was desperate. Burgess roared, the veins on his forehead burst, and his right hand clenched his fist, instantly turning pitch black. Right arm back, and charged violently, without the slightest hesitation, directly facing the tip of the sand cone, and slammed it out with a ruthless punch. Armament's fist, hitting the tip of Armament's cone, made a crisp sound, which spread in this area. It was very harsh, and after listening to it, goosebumps all over the body followed. At the same time, between the fist and the sand cone, a faint spark appeared, flashing, jumping and falling to the desert. At this moment, a huge force came, which made Burgess fly upside down even faster. Dripping. Drops of blood, in the process of Burgess's retreat, continued to fall on the desert. It looked so bloody, so terrifying. "Stop for Lao Su!" Burgess roared, his feet stomped hard on the sand, making a thumping sound, and the dust flew up, enveloped him, and finally steadied himself. Seeing the smoke billowing in front of them, the girls couldn't help but whisper. "Karina's eyes are very good, her beautiful eyebrows are wrinkled, her pretty face has a worried look," and she muttered something. Burgess was injured and was stabbed by that cone tip. "I'm afraid the wound on his right hand is very serious." Corona nodded again and again, covered her face, and said fearfully, "Blood, I saw it just now, he's bleeding a lot." Nami rubbed her smooth forehead and sighed, "Such a sharp all makes people horrified to see it, and I still feel a little numb. If this is stabbed, it will not die." Alvita stood the big iron rod in front of him, frowned Lu Yeme, faced with the attack of the three people, he directly took the sand defense. Then used the sand cone to attack. It's fast and powerful. Ordinary people can't dodge it at all, and can only resist. As expected, Shichibukai's strength cannot be underestimated. Even the group of people at the bottom, their strength is not comparable to us. Princess Vivi's face was pale, she held her jade hand tightly, and said a word with great worry. "I hope Captain Burgess is safe and sound. It's really not what I want to see if captains get hurt in order to save my country." Turning to look at the man beside him, he suggested warmly, "Master Chris, I'm afraid the captains are not Crocodile's opponents. I think it's up to you to take action. Otherwise, I'm afraid that the captains will be in danger, and it will be bad." Reiju patted her fragrant shoulder lightly, blinked her beautiful eyes, and smiled Isho. "Vivi, don't worry, everything will be fine. If their lives are really in danger, Chris will definitely shoot, and won't watch. Just like just now, if Chris wants to, he can make a move and stop that sand cone. But if you do this, Burgess won't get any experience, and your strength will naturally improve very slowly. Such a result is not what Chris wants to see, nor is it what the squad leaders want." Robin's eyebrows curved, shallow Isho, and said intelligently and generously, "This is the choice of the squad leaders. They have already made up their minds about being injured. So we can rest assured, don't worry about them, just watch the battle carefully." Baccarat folded her crimson hair and smiled gracefully, agreeing, "You really don't need to pay attention to them, just let them go. These guys, the more they fight, the more brave they are. They won't care about a little injury. Besides, they are very happy to be able to fight against such a big man as Shichibukai, how can they worry about getting hurt?" The others didn't say much, they nodded in unison, and they all figured it out, and they won't worry about anything anymore. Then, I looked forward and watched this wonderful battle carefully. Guys, the picture above is the absolute defense used by Crocodile. Everyone should know about Gaara's situation, so the author won't introduce it too much. In addition, I wish everyone a happy Lantern Festival and become more and more handsome. Because of the Lantern Festival these 2 days, the update is not strong. From tomorrow onwards, return to normal, walk every day with 4D, come on, be dry. 177. Fan, Oka's sneak attack was successful, and the sand crocodile was beaten to blood. For automatic subscription. A gust of breeze blew, making a whistling sound, blowing away all the smoke and dust raised, revealing the situation inside. I saw the pitch-black sand cones had turned into pale golden sand, 1-1 and 1-1 falling on the sand surface, and soon the whole sand cone disappeared. At the same time, drop by drop of blood dripped from Burgess' right hand, dyeing the sand surface red, looking very bloody. Damn crocodile, I'm not finished with you. Burgess raised his right hand and saw that the back of his hand was blurred, the wound was large and deep, and the blood was gushing out, and he couldn't stop. Seeing the appearance of Burgess, the executives of Baroque Works all smiled, feeling really good. Sure enough, the president is still the most powerful, ha ha ha. Nikita held a small umbrella and laughed exaggerately, very unpolished and quite unqualified. Mary Ann covered her eyes with a look of fear on her pretty face, and murmured, "It's so scary, it's bloody, it scares people to death." Sarah brushed her water blue hair, and said with a smile, "One has been injured, and then I will kill them one by one, he he he." A faint smile on Galtino's pale face, he said something. The absolute defense of the leader is more than a little bit stronger than the fortress I made with candles. Sure enough, Logia's sand, the defense is stronger than Paramesha's candle, this point can be confirmed. Daz Bones was expressionless, coughed and said, "This is just the beginning, the boss has not used all his strength. After all, Shichibukai is the top pirate, so he's definitely not that weak." Bentham was lying on the desert, smiling, and said strangely, "Okay, great, kill them all, and leave none of them behind. How dare you bully the slave family, these damn guys, all of them will go to hell." Coughed out a mouthful of freshness and said with a smile, "I knew that the leader is the strongest, ha ha ha." The battle area ahead. Looking at Burgess' bloody right hand, Bartolomeo frowned and said a quick sentence. Looking at the situation, Burgess is seriously injured, it's a little troublesome now, one less combat power. Jin was as indifferent as always, and said indifferently, although he can't use his hands, he can use the power of the devil fruit, and this will not be affected. Luo Mai walked towards Burgess, still so cold, just a little skin injury, it's no big deal, and it won't kill anyone. Hawkins was dead, and said, super defense, coupled with fierce offense, cooperate very closely. Sure enough, being a Shichibukai is not so easy to deal with. Poisoning the blood of Burgess' feet, he smiled strangely and said, "Since I've known this guy, this is the first time I've seen him hurt so badly. This time, this guy will definitely swear not to give up, to fight back, to start working hard, hee hee." Cavendish clenched the famous sword Durandal with a solemn expression. Everyone should pay attention. This crocodile's strength is really much stronger than ours. If I encounter such an attack, I will definitely be hit hard. Kuro habitually pushed his glasses and said calmly, "The attack power of this kind of armed sand cone is indeed too sharp. It can't be resisted hard, it can only be avoided. With a few of us, we don't know observation hockey. If we get too close, it will be difficult to avoid it. So in the next battle, everyone must keep your spirits up, and you can't have the slightest bit of carelessness, or you will really die." Lafitte flew in the air, flapping his clean wings. Vivi Isho, still so polite, said something. Crocodile's sand defense is indeed very terrifying, and there is no way to break it. Up until now, I can see it clearly. This guy deserves to be Shichibukai, we shouldn't be able to take him down. At this moment, Crocodile made a dull voice, and said with disdain for Isho, "You kid, you don't even know what Shichibukai means." While speaking, the sand ball made a rustling sound, and from the top, the fine sand gradually slipped and fell into the desert one after another. Crocodile's head was the first to appear, and I saw that he was still holding a cigar, looking like a big brother, and he couldn't pull it. Little devils, this is just the beginning. Next, I will be serious and kill you one by one. Gu ha ha ha, scream, despair, this is the right thing to do with Lao Su. At this moment, Van Augur quietly emerged from under the desert, and half of his body remained in the desert. The pistol was quickly released, the trigger was pulled, and with a bang, a shot was fired at the back of Crocodile's head. What? Hearing the sound of gunshots coming from behind, Crocodile was startled, and a look of horror instantly appeared on his cool face. "And he have time to think about anything, because the bullet behind me, had already opened up the space and was about to hit the back of my head." The critical moment, when the crisis is like an egg, Crocodile hastened to elementalize. Explosion, and Crocodile's body instantly turned into a piece of yellow sand, floating in the sky, and it could be seen everywhere. If you find it carefully, you can find blood stains on a piece of fine sand, but the amount is not very large, and it is not easy to be noticed. This sudden scene made the surrounding viewers stunned, unable to react at all. Originally Crocodile was talking, but a figure secretly appeared underground within a few meters behind him, and quickly fired a cold shot. A Van Augur's series of actions is really too fast. What's going on? Why did someone suddenly appear? Is he a ghost? Mary Ann was relatively timid, with a look of fear on her little face, and her little hands were trembling, obviously frightened by Van Augur. Nikita's eyes widened, she looked like she had seen a ghost, and said in disbelief, "It's terrible, how could this person come out of the ground?" "Oh, I remembered, he is the man who shot the president. But wasn't he still there just now? Why did he go underground?" Sarah shook her head, her pretty face was full of surprise, and she said, "This must be the ability of the devil fruit. It's amazing, it's really incredible to be able to hide underground." Seeing the crocodile turned into sand, Dory couldn't help laughing, and said happily, "Good job, I finally hurt this Shichibukai, ya. Carrying the giant axe, Brigitte nodded, followed by laughing, "It must be impossible to successfully deal with Shichibukai. So Van Augur can hurt him, it means that this sneak attack is a success, kapapapapa." Listening to the words of the two giant uncles, Nami's fair and beautiful face showed a look of doubt, and said something curiously. "Is it true what the two giant uncles said? The crocodile was elementalized just now, so I should have avoided this sneak attack." Alvita nodded slightly, and Isho said with a smile, "I'm also surprised that Crocodile is not injured." Betty took a breath, calm as always. Crocodile was indeed injured, and there was a piece of sand with blood on it. But looking at the situation, he avoided it in time. It should have just scratched the skin and bleed a little. It's nothing serious. Karina frowned her beautiful eyebrows, sighed, and said with emotion, "It's a pity, it's really a pity. This sneak attack did not seriously damage the sand crocodile, and there will definitely be no chance next time. This time it will be very difficult." Corona floated up and down in the air, making a silver bell-like laughter, and said something. "That's enough, if Crocodile is killed, how can Chris take action, ha 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 ha. Vivi clenched her small fists tightly, with an uplifting look on her face. She said with a smile, "It's great, I finally made that bastard see blood. Crocodile is so arrogant, he was hit this time, just to hit his arrogance hard, he. Robin put his hands in his trouser pockets, blinked his beautiful eyes, and said intelligently and elegantly, with his face-saving personality, he definitely cannot accept this fact. So next, Crocodile will definitely run wild, there is no doubt about that." Reiju brushed her pink hair and smiled. Isho, like Chris said, let the storm come harder. Only in such a life and death battle can the squad leaders grow up quickly and become real powerhouses. Girls didn't say anything more, and looked at the direction of the battlefield silently, all attentively, very seriously. Because they clearly know that the next battle will definitely be extremely severe, and life and death are on the line. Bosses, the next chapter Crocodile is defeated, so I won't write any more. In other words, this Shichibukai battle is over. 178. The squad leader can't beat the sand crocodile, Chris officially shot. For automatic subscription. Damn brats, you've managed to piss me off. In the air, the sand combined, and Crocodile's head was exposed first, followed by both hands and feet, returning to their original shape. Crocodile touched the back of his head with his right hand, hot and sticky. When he put it in front of him, he saw that his fingers were red and bleeding. Staring at Van Augur, full of murderous intent, he said with a sneer, "It's an exaggeration to be able to hide underground. If it wasn't for Lao Su's quick reaction and elementalization, he would have really been killed by you. Unfortunately, this situation will never happen again, ha 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 ha." Seeing that Crocodile was so arrogant, Burgess was furious, sneered, and said something. "Dignified Shichibukai, you were almost killed, what else do you have to be proud of? It's just rubbish. Seeing that you are also bleeding, I'm really happy in my heart, way ha ha ha." Luo used his fruit ability to help Burgess heal. While Crocodile was nearly killed, he was in far more danger than you. Bartolomeo shrugged his shoulders with a casual look on his face. Van Augur is lurking so close, it can't kill him, it's really speechless. Jin looked indifferent and said, "This guy's observation hockey is much stronger than us, so it's normal for him to hide." Cavendish frowned and said depressedly, "Even the trump card of Van Augur is not very useful. This time, it's very difficult to deal with, the situation is very unfavorable for us." Van Augur had already emerged from the desert, still expressionless. "It's a pity that armament hockey doesn't work, or else I'll just kill him. Looks like, when this battle is over, I have to hurry up to practice hockey, otherwise I'll be too passive when I meet someone with Logia's abilities." Hawkins looked at Van Augur with a dead man, and said in a low voice, "It's not easy to hurt him." Poisonous smile was very ugly and he coughed. "This is just the beginning, I'm not sure who will kill the deer. I still don't believe it. With so many of us, we won't be able to beat this shit in Shichibukai. Stop joking." Kuro habitually pushed his glasses and said calmly and rationally, "Van Augur moves very fast and performs perfectly. The problem still lies with Crocodile. With observation hockey, coupled with the ability of elementalization, it is indeed too difficult to sneak a successful attack. In other words, if you want to win by surprise, you can't do it. This battle still has to be fought head-on, with real swords and real guns." Lafitte flapped his wings and made a fluttering sound. He said mildly, "Anyway, you can just do your best, don't worry too much about the outcome. After all, there are only a few people who can know hockey, and the combat effectiveness is uneven. This is our disadvantage." At this moment, Crocodile took a breath, his eyes were cold, and he said something in a calm tone. "I originally planned to play with you, but now I have decided to kill you all quickly and leave none of you. And then throw your corpses into the scorching sun to expose them to the sun, so that you can't live in peace one by one, ha ha ha." Crocodile stopped laughing, stared at Van Augur, and said murderously, "Now what I want to kill most is you. Desert Sword." The voice fell. Crocodile's right hand instantly turned into a large pile of fine sand, and quickly combined, it turned into a huge sand blade. This knife was made of sand, it was still extremely sharp, with a faint icy cold glow, blowing hair and breaking hair. "Ha!" With a sound, Crocodile threw the huge sand blade directly under his feet without any hesitation. Was a bang, and the smoke and dust vivi was raised, and the sand surface was not cut, it was exactly the same as before, without any change. But the huge sand blade disappeared as soon as it entered the desert, and no trace of it could be found again. At the same time, Crocodile's right hand also disappeared, empty, forming a large piece of fine sand at the shoulder level. Obviously, Crocodile's right hand, which has turned into a huge sand blade, is walking under the desert and is attacking Van Augur. This is Crocodile's ultimate move, Desert Sword. Van Augur, hurry up, hurry up. Cavendish looked anxious and hurriedly urged. Poison Light was ruthless, smiled cruelly and said, "Let Lao Su poison you to death, Crocodile." Poison Dragon. Words were finished, the right hand instantly turned a dark green, and green gas was emitted into the air, making a sizzling sound. These gases combined quickly, and a green faucet appeared. Immediately after the dragon body, dragon tail, dragon claws. After everything was formed, I saw this pale green dragon with two dragon eyes sparkling, giving off a frightening cold glow. A violent aura emerged, it looked really mighty, it was really a special hockey. A roar, the dragon's tail swayed fiercely, and it rushed towards Crocodile as fast as lightning. Lafayette, Luo and the others did not watch on the side, they all launched a violent attack on Crocodile. It's not that easy to kill me. Van Augur did not know that Crocodile would attack from that direction, he did not sit still and ran quickly to the left. And when he was still running, he didn't move in a straight line, using the glyph. This is the way to avoid it. When walking in the desert, the squad leaders asked Chris for advice about Crocodile's powerful moves. One of them is Desert Sword, and if you want to avoid this attack, you must not dodge in a straight line, otherwise it will be very dangerous. Damn little devil, he actually knows how to crack it. Seeing Van Augur take this way of escape, how could Crocodile not understand that his Desert Sword is doomed to be useless? Biting the cigar fiercely, with an angry expression on his face, he said very angrily, "Why do you guys? Little bastards, you know me so well. Damn, you all deserve to die." At this time, behind Van Augur, there was a change in the desert below. With a sound, a huge sand blade smashed through the sand surface, as fast as lightning, and slashed towards Van Augur's waist. The imposing manner is powerful and sharp, and it seems that even the space has been cut open. Seen that the sharpness of this blow is really extraordinary. "You're doomed, Crocodile." Van Augur ignored the attack behind him and continued. Glyph escaped, completely ignoring Crocodile's attack. There is no other reason. What Chris said is equivalent to the Imperial Edict, absolutely can be trusted, there is no need to doubt anything at all. In the eyes of the squad leaders, their captain is like a godlike existence. So as long as Chris says it, they will unconditionally choose to believe it. This is the prestige of Chris, and he responds properly. Brush. Huge sand blade, cutting the air behind Van Augur, making the space tremble faintly, the power is really very powerful. Unfortunately, just by attacking the air, even the corner of Van Augur's clothes could not be touched. This ultimate move of Crocodile was completely voided. Damn it, Lao Su's Desert Sword has really been cracked. Seeing the defeat, Crocodile was really angry to the extreme, and the anger in his heart was as if a volcano was about to erupt, enough to burn the entire world. Absolute defense. Although he was very unwilling, Crocodile was unable to counterattack in the face of the attack of the squad leaders, so he could only resort to defensive measures to deal with the current hurdle. Immediately afterwards, that huge sandball appeared, wrapping Crocodile in it, exactly as before. The stabs of the poisonous dragon Lafayette, Luo's. All the attacks of the squad leaders fell on the sandball, making a series of explosion sounds, and at the same time, fine sand continued to fall on the sandball. It fell and spread all over the place. Still the same result, Crocodile's absolute defense, like a tortoise shell, can't be broken no matter what. Of the squad leaders were ineffective, unable to touch a single hair of Crocodile. 10 minutes later. This battlefield, such a situation has occurred. The sky was still gloomy, and a gust of breeze blew, which brought a touch of coolness and eased the tense fighting atmosphere, as if it was a halftime break. Crocodile was alone, while the squad leaders lined up, standing on the opposite side of the sand crocodile, and did not continue the fight. "Little devils, can't you die so soon?" Crocodile sneered, took a breath, and said arrogantly, "If you surrender now, I will take you in and make you all my subordinates. This is the last chance I give you. If I refuse me again, I will immediately kill you. Did you hear me?" Cavendish ignored Crocodile's words, looked at the squad leaders, shrugged his shoulders, and said helplessly, "After fighting for so long, this young master can understand that we really can't take him down. Forget it, let the captain take action. If this goes on, this young master can't stand it." Rubbing his stomach, with a look of pain on his face, he said with a wry smile, "I was punched by this bastard just now, and it still hurts so badly. This young master has to rest." Jin wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, looking unwilling, "Although I don't want to give up, but if we continue to fight, we will be hurt even more." "Damn, not strong enough. I have to work harder and become stronger as soon as possible." Poisoning a mouthful of blood just now, he was kicked by Crocodile, injuring his internal organs. His face paled, and he echoed, "It's all that sandball defense. Without this tortoise shell, I can poison him in minutes. Even my asthma can't corrode. This guy's defense is really too strong." Van Auger tapped the gun on the shoulder, and said with a blank face, "Although I am not injured yet, if the fight continues, I will not be an exception. Although I don't want to admit it, it's true, we're not his opponents. He is destined to be defeated at the hands of the captain. This is fate." Bartolomeo touched his nose ring and scolded, "I'm really unwilling, but we really have no choice but to leave it to the captain." Luo carried the demon sword and cried, "Still so cold. It turns out that any Shichibukai is not so easy to deal with. Since it's possible to sit in such a position, it makes sense." Burgess snorted and said disdainfully, "What makes sense? It's not that we're not strong enough. As long as Lao Su's armament is stronger, this guy will be my opponent. Lao Su will kill him in minutes." Grass. Kuro habitually pushed up his glasses, sighed infrequently, and said something. "There are too many of us who don't know hockey, so when we cooperate, we are naturally constrained and unable to fully exert our strength. I'll admit defeat. Everyone has done their best. Let's hand him over to the captain to deal with it." Lafitte turned his cane, Vivi Isho, and said politely, "If you know you can't beat it, if you continue to fight, it will be too much. Anyway, after this battle, everyone has also learned a lot. In summary, the strength will be further improved. If that's the case, then this battle is over, and the rest is up to the captain." Guys, the above is a picture of the Desert Sword. During the War on the Top, Crocodile once used this move to cut a kainu in half, which shows how powerful this move is. If you don't have an impression, go and review the War on the Top. I won't write more here, so as not to waste words. 179. In just 2 moves, Chris killed the sand crocodile. For automatic subscription. Sure enough, the president is still the strongest. He beat them to the bottom of the water, and they all conceded defeat, ha ha ha. Nikita was still holding the small umbrella, exaggerating laughter, as always, unqualified and annoying. Mary Ann nodded lightly, sweet Isho, and said happily, "Looking at this situation, it won't take a while, and the battle will be over completely. Next, I can go back to rest and eat my favorite senbei, hee hee." Sarah brushed her dark blue hair and sneered, "Our leader can Shichibukai, how can we defeat the president with just a few rubbish of them? I still want their captain to take action, hee hee, what's the use of that, it's not the same garbage." Galtino coughed and said, "Seeing that they are also injured, I am really happy in my heart. Damn, I haven't been hurt for a long time. If I have a chance, I must kill them myself." Bentham's face was still so swollen, and he said vaguely, "The slaves also want to kill them, but wouldn't it be more interesting if they were turned into slaves?" Daz's bones was lying on the ground, the blood on his body had solidified, and he said lightly, the strength of these people is very good. If we can get them to join the work club, then our organization will become very strong. Unfortunately, all this is impossible, they chose the path of death. Look of anger, he scolded, just these bastards, all of them deserve to die, and no one wants to live. When the president of the club takes them down, I will take revenge and hack them to death, ha ha ha. Hearing the conversation of the squad leaders, Equilem sighed and said something to himself. Sure enough, relying on them to deal with Shichibukai Crocodile is still too reluctant. After all, this bastard, but Shichibukai who has been for decades, his strength is not ordinary, it is too difficult to deal with. He ran faster and nodded his head, and with a croak, he echoed. Dory looked down at Chris' figure, laughed and said, faced with a terrifying existence like Shichibukai, it's up to the captain to take action, yeah. Brigitte carried the giant axe, nodded and agreed, this guy's strength is indeed very powerful. Even if we follow suit, it is inevitable that we won't be able to take him down. Speaking of which, after we left Little Garden, the opponent we met for the first time was so powerful, it was really interesting, kapapapapa. As for these beauties like Flowers and Jade, when they heard Lafitte and the others, they couldn't help but talk. Alvita stood the big iron rod in front of him, with curved eyebrows and a charming smile. It's really not easy to be able to fight Shichibukai for so long. Dazaya shrugged and said casually, unfortunately, Crocodile was attacked once, and it was a sneak attack. It would have been better if we had hit him head-on. Seen from this that the strength gap between the two sides is still very large. Nami blinked her eyes and said with a sweet smile, I can only say that in the desert, this crocodile is really dominant. Lasha nodded and agreed, this desert is all under his control, and he can attack at any time. Fighting this bastard here is really unfair to the squad leaders. Betty spit out the smoke in her mouth and said with a sneer, in the world, where there is so-called fairness, a big fist is the last word. The main reason is the squad leaders. As for fighting in the desert and being in a disadvantaged position, this is just an excuse. Corona floated up and down in the air with a crisp laugh, the next thing is. Chris comes on stage, I'm looking forward to it, ha 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 ha. Kaya's eyebrows were curved, her smile was pure and sweet, and she followed up. I really want to see Lord Chris take action, he must be very handsome, hee hee. Makino touched her little head, still so gentle and dignified, our captain, the battle has always been decisive and quick, and it must be solved by one move. At this critical moment, Princess Vivi couldn't be calm anymore. Mainu looked at Chris, and said a prayer with a look of pleading on her face. Master Chris, please, be sure to defeat Crocodile and let the people live a good life. I'll cheer for you, trust Chris, you won't let me down. Robin patted her shoulder, and said intellectually and elegantly, don't worry, there is absolutely no problem. When you were on the boat, you also watched Chris practice and know what kind of strength he is. A thing like Crocodile, it's a one-shot kill. Relax, as soon as Chris makes a move, the result will come out immediately. Reiju looked at Chris's profile, his eyes were flowing, and Isho said with a smile, Chris, everyone is waiting for you. The next battle will definitely be exciting, we are all looking forward to it. Others didn't speak, they all nodded, looking at Chris's figure one by one, with hope in their beautiful eyes. Chris didn't say anything, his face was expressionless, With a sound, without any movement trajectory, he just disappeared in place. An instant, Chris appeared on the left side of Crocodile, his right leg was armed, and he swept across it like lightning. What? Crocodile was startled, his pupils shrank. His face was full of horror, completely unable to react. To elementalize, and there is no way to evade, let alone armed defense, so you can only watch and stare blankly. Bang! A blast came, and a shrill scream sounded at the same time, and with a swoosh, Crocodile was kicked in the left waist, and the man stepped on the sand, like lightning, and flew backwards. There was no doubt that blood was constantly spitting out of his mouth, and his internal organs were obviously severely injured. Zzz, crocodile rubbed against the sand surface and flew backwards, causing the smoke and dust to rise rapidly, covering a large area. Too fast. The speed at which Chris shot was so fast that all the onlookers on the side could not react. Each brain seems to be stuck, just staring blankly, not knowing what to say. Damn. At this time, Crocodile had stopped flying backwards. He could not stand up straight. His back was hunched and his waist was hunched, like a dying old man. At this time, the smoke was filled with dust, and through the dust, he looked in the direction of Chris. His pale face was full of horror, and he looked like he had seen a ghost. He coughed out a mouthful of blood and said in shock, why, how could you be so fast? Damn it, what the hell did you do just now? Why did it suddenly appear, ahem? What kind of ability do you have? Are you the one who ate the space fruit, or did you eat? Before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted directly by Chris. I have no obligation to answer you, Crocodile. Soon as the voice fell, the space was broken open again, and disappeared without a trace, and no one could be found. Seeing Chris disappear again, Crocodile's pupils shrank, his face showed anger, and he cursed. Damn brat, I really thought I'd eaten up. Even if you are fast, you can do anything to me, boo-ha-ha-ha. Absolute defense. Immediately after brushing, the sand surface vibrated for a while, and fine sand flew from all directions, instantly combined, and turned into a huge sandball. Obviously, in the face of Chris's strange speed, Crocodile had no choice but to hide for a while, and then think of a way. Crocodile, just this turtle shell, wants to stop me too. Absolute defense. Wait, you'll know how ridiculous this is. A swoosh, Chris instantly appeared above the sand ball, his eyes narrowed, his movements were fast, and he punched down fiercely. A book friend mentioned it, let the author write less thanks and update more. Okay, I will thank you several times a day from now on. I won't thank you more, but I should post more. This is the last word. 180, Onagumo comes and Chris starts playing Elite Vice Admiral. For automatic subscription. Bang! A blast came, and the fine sand on the top of the sandball spread out in all directions, like a goddess scattered flowers, and fell towards the bottom one after another. Ah! At this time, there was a shrill scream in the sandball, and after listening to it, there was a kind of creepy feeling. However, this sound only lasted for less than a second, and then disappeared completely, without making any more sound. The sound of brushing sounded, and the sandballs fell apart, constantly cracking, and dense cracks appeared. Immediately afterwards, the fine sand continued to fall, revealing what was inside. Crocodile bowed his head, a smear of blood smeared across his face, tick-tock into the desert. It looked so miserable, it was unbearable to look directly at it. Suddenly, Crocodile shook his body, and the man fell directly forward. With a bang, the smoke rose, and Crocodile just lay on the desert, completely fainted. At this time, the fine sand on the sandball had all fallen on the desert, and everything disappeared, and no trace could be found. Only two people in this area, Chris is standing and Crocodile is lying. This Shichibukai scramble, Chris Crocodile. This sand crocodile was directly abused and ended in a fiasco. Shocked. Seeing the scene in front of them, the cadres of Baroque Works all had expressions of horror on their faces, one by one as if they had been electrocuted, and they were completely petrified. How is it possible? Mikita's little umbrella couldn't be held anymore, it fell onto the sand, and said in horror, the president has been defeated, how is this possible? It's impossible. Marian's little face showed a look of fear, she shrank her body, and was very afraid to say a word. It's over, now we're all over. No, I don't want to die, woo woo woo. Sarah shook her head, rubbed her eyes, confirmed it several times, and finally accepted this fact. Crocodile, the leader of the Baroque Works, was really defeated. Why is this happening? The boss is Shichibukai, the most powerful pirate in the ocean. Why did he lose? Tell me, who can tell me why? Galtino was originally sitting, but when he saw this scene, he broke down and shouted. Are you kidding me? Shichibukai, who is dignified, even loses. How can this be? Before he could finish speaking, the injury broke out, his eyes closed directly, he fell backward, and passed out. Bentham cried and begged, no, the slave family does not want to die, please forgive the slave family. Shocked expression on his face, he couldn't sit still, lay down on the ground, and said something with a wry smile. As the leader really Shichibukai, I can't believe it. A newcomer who has just entered the Great Waterway, can defeat Shichibukai, isn't this a fantasy? It's fake, it's all a lie, the leader is definitely not Shichibukai, absolutely not. Daz Bones frowned, his face full of doubts, and said inexplicably, the leader must be Shichibukai, there is no doubt about that. Logia rustling fruit, this one cannot be counterfeited. As for why the president failed, there is only one reason, the other party is too strong. Although he has just entered the Great Waterway and looks young, his combat power is very terrifying, so the president will be defeated. Seeing Crocodile lying on the ground like a dead dog, the expressions on the faces of the squad leaders were really wonderful, and they couldn't help but sigh. Bartolomeo laughed and praised. Sure enough, the captain took the shot, and it will be done in minutes. What Shichibukai, that's a piece of junk, quack. Jin looked at the back of Chris Stalwart, his dark face showed a look of admiration, and said something. The captain is really too strong, indescribably powerful, no matter what opponent is, kill them all, there is absolutely no doubt about that. Luo carried the demon sword and cried, coldly as always, nodded and said, let's not say anything else, the most admirable thing about the captain is his actions are decisive. At Logatown, hit Colonel Smoker at headquarters, just. And this time against Shichibukai, it's a two-stroke solution. The fast, accurate and ruthless fighting style is fully reflected, and it perfectly interprets the true meaning of it. This is worth learning. Hawkins was still dead, and said in a low voice, when the captain was fighting, he really didn't say a word of nonsense, and he never made a mess. Speaking of which, the fate of Crocodile just confirms what the captain said, the villain died of too many words. Cavendish smiled and looked very happy. Very good, although this young master is injured, it is only a small injury. Crocodile was kicked to the blood, and then the captain's head was hammered. Haha, his injuries are more serious than ours, which is really heartwarming. Poisoning the shadow of Chris, the old face showed a rare look of admiration, and praised Chris. Everyone knows how strong Crocodile's absolute defense is. Even my poisonous dragon cannot be corrupted. However, the captain broke the turtle shell with just one punch. This strength is really too strong and too strong. I am convinced. Burgess raised his arms, laughed, and said something. Let's not say anything else. Now that we have killed Crocodile, can we become Shichibukai? Way ha 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 ha. Van Augur tapped his gun on the shoulder, and said with a blank face, the fate of Crocodile is already doomed. After all, the strength of the captain is really too powerful. Kurovivi nodded, his eyes flashed with wisdom, and said rationally, the captain has the fastest speed and the strongest attack power. The combination of the two, with Crocodile's strength, is completely unattractive. And the captain is not only powerful, but also has a calm personality. He is decisive and ruthless, without the slightest hesitation. It can only be said that the captain was born a fighting madman, and the consciousness of fighting is really perfect. Lafitte adjusted his top hat, and said with a gentle smile, I wouldn't be surprised by this result. What I'm most looking forward to now is the news that the captain has become Shichibukai in the newspaper. After all, we are looking forward to this day, it's really been a long time. Excited, not only the squad leaders, but the people below were also very happy, shouting loudly and loudly, spreading all over the desert. Long live Captain Chris. What shichibukai, it's all rubbish, stupid stuff, ha ha ha. What about the crocodile, bah. Now the special mother is a dead fish, besides breathing, what else can I do? Shichibukai belongs to us, let's drink to Shichibukai, quack. Stop talking nonsense, jump up, you must jump up at this time, let me twist it, hee hee hee. Fuck, who beat Lao Su, it's a mess. Hearing the shouts of the crew, Ecolem was really excited, burst into tears, choked up, and said something. Okay, that's really nice. Crocodile is defeated, now the citizens can finally live a good life, woo woo woo. He ran fast and flapped his wings, making a series of quack quack sounds. His tone was full of joy, and he was very happy. Abis covered her mouth, her voice was immature, and she giggled and said, it's very happy to run fast, it said that today is its happiest day. Padang clapped his hands, smiled, and praised, the boss is the best, no one can match, the first in the world. Babo nodded and echoed, the person I admire most is. Our captain is like a god in the sky, powerful and mysterious. The little black dog looked at Chris's eyes, full of fear, and didn't dare to resist anymore. Too strong, no matter what, he must listen to his words, or he will not be slaughtered. The captain's speed is too fast, you can't see the trajectory of the movement at all. Dory laughed and said boldly, who can escape the captain's terrifying speed, Brigitte nodded and laughed, the ability to travel through space is really scary. If I fight against the captain, I'm afraid I'll be knocked out in seconds with one move, kapapa. The same way, seeing Crocodile's tragic state, the pretty faces of the girls showed beauty one by one, and they looked extremely beautiful. Nami blinked her big eyes and said with a sweet and pure smile, Chris's shot is really extraordinary. In less than a minute, the battle is over. Alvida raised her eyebrows and smiled. Isho said, this time, our goal has finally been achieved, which is really gratifying. I knew that, Lord Chris, he will always be the most handsome, hee hee hee. Kaya has a look of admiration on her face, and she really admires Chris. Sweetheart Queen shrugged her shoulders and said casually, the only downside is that the battle process was too fast, and the curtain came to an end between the lights and flints. To be honest, I haven't reacted yet, it's really over too soon. Betty took a breath and said with a sneer, with Chris as a person, how could it be possible to procrastinate, it must be done with 2 or 3 moves. Vivi choked up, her face was full of tears, and she said with great excitement, victory, Lord Chris really did it. I'm really happy that the people can finally live a happy life and don't have to worry anymore. Thank you, Lord Chris, I will remember your kindness for the rest of my life. Robin patted her shoulder, and said with a smile, they are all partners, so why be so polite? With the strength of Chris, it is normal to defeat Crocodile, I believe you were prepared before. But then again, without the destruction of Crocodile, the kingdom of Alabasta will definitely develop rapidly, and all deserts will become oases. Lasha also burst into tears and said intermittently, Robin, you are not from Alabasta and cannot understand how Vivi and I feel. The fall of Crocodile means a lot to us. I'm so excited right now. Father, Mother, and all the villagers, now you can rest in peace, the country will never be subject to war again, and everyone will live a good life, woo woo woo. Makino looked at Vivi and Lasha, very gentle, and said something. Next, the branch will be established here, and the lives of the citizens will get better and better. So, you don't have to worry, everything will be fine. Reiju brushed off her pink hair, and a sweet smile bloomed on her perfectly fair face. Next, my family will officially cooperate with Chris. Call my father later, I believe he must be very happy, maybe so excited that he can't sleep at night. Baccarat frowned, and said generously, today is really worth celebrating, it's really not easy. From boarding the South Blue, traveling around the world, and today finally achieved the goal. All these kinds of things are really indescribable and indescribable. At this moment, a serious and cold voice came from afar. I finally got you, Chris. Damn sea rubbish, if you want to be Shichibukai, why don't you just stay in Impel Down? Today, I, Onagumo Vice Admiral, will end you here, ha ha ha. Spoiler ahead of time, Crocodile will also appear later, not the end. As for the battle with Onagumo, I won't write more, one chapter is over, speed up the process.